Hi. Hi.
Okay, we are
Hello.
live. I
Hi.
think if someone in the chat wants to confirm we're
Oh,
live,
be so nice to know whether we were live or not.
I got a weird error message from YouTube. I don't know. I don't know if that was actually a problem. It says here's 4 concurrent viewers. So someone's there. If you're
Why does
here,
it say concurrent versus, I guess the other count is consecutive?
concurrent is like at the same time, right?
Yeah, but like I would assume, well, it's
Maybe it's like trying
live,
to, yeah. Maybe otherwise, if it just said viewers, then you'd be confused and think that it's like total as
like
opposed to who's
four
there now.
cumulative viewers.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, we're live. Sweet. Oh my.
I just need
Phew.
a, I need
Oh,
a, I had a big sociology first year textbook that propped up my microphone and it's been
mm-hmm.
moved. So I need to find a replacement for it. Just a
Why did it
second.
move? Did you have to go research something?
No, it's because I had to tear down for a birthday party today. That was it was all
Uh,
my stuff had to go.
the birthday party was in this room, you're
Is in
saying.
this very room. Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
See ya.
I'll find
Well,
something.
now I'm live. I got to, all right. So what should
Sorry.
we talk about here? I guess let's check out the scoreboard. That's the go-to. 4-2 Dallas over Minnesota. So Minnesota, like, is it not the case that they could be better if they had better goaltending? Like, it seems to me, I've been following like so closely all the discourse on the Minnesota Wild, but seems like they're just getting sunk by terrible goaltending. And they have like I think the top goal in the AHL, Jesper Wallstedt, has been like, I think he just won like AHL goalie of the week or something I saw. So maybe this is like something everyone is saying. It seems obvious. Like Fleury and Gustafsson aren't cutting it. And this team is supposed to be good. Is that, I don't know. If any in the chat knows what the plan is here in Minnesota, but it seems to me like they need to call up this Wallstedt guy. What does Fleury have? 4 goals against on 19 shots. I don't know. I guess when Radek Faxa is coming at you shorthanded. Oh, it's 5-2 now. Jeez. Minnesota Wild. I thought they would be good this year. They have Spurgeon back. I thought the whole idea was maybe like they'll improve once Spurgeon is back. There it is. Brian's got the book. You'd think that you would have thought the defense would be better. I guess I don't know. Is this a case of Flurry biffing it, or is it a case of the defense being terrible?
Thanks,
I don't know.
John J. Massionis and Linda M. Gerber for your contribution to the show.
Yeah.
I just noticed it's an Alex Colville painting
No one. Okay.
on the cover.
Do more of who do you have?
Oh,
Is
you're talking
Spurgeon?
about other things.
Oh yeah, we're definitely not talking about this sociology book. It's like
Well, one day, if anybody wants to.
you'll give it away. We should have a for the playoff pool winner. You can give away the sociology book.
The shipping would be ridiculous.
Well, how about
You
it
know
can
what I'll
be
share?
like
I could give away the sociology, this basic principles, academic outline. See, it's got
it's
everything you
great.
need to know. It's like your Cliff's notes. A
I'd love to
value
josh
of
it up
four
with you, but
dollars
you
and
told me,
twenty
Brian,
five
that you have to
cents.
go. Didn't you tell me you have to go hard at 9:30?
Yeah, yeah, but this is how I get ready. This is part of my. Okay,
I'd love to I'd love to do it, but
you would love
we
to
probably should
dedicate
stick
the
to
time to
schedule.
the show.
No, I mean like
Yes.
no, I'm saying I'd love to chat and just joke
Uh,
around. Like if I didn't know there was a deadline, but since there is, I feel like
is
this pressure to, you
the
know.
table's uneven. Ugh,
Okay. Oh my gosh. This
it's
party
hard.
sounds like it was a real rager.
It wasn't. I just had to give up my podcasting table, which like is unreasonable. Like just like taking up a quarter of the basement.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
gotta.
so are you good to go or do you need to like get a new table or something now?
No, I'm just gonna whatever still is happening. I'm just gonna deal with it.
You're a pro. It'll be good.
Okay, what is this? 511? Oh,
Okay. So shall I shall I start?
I need another textbook as a doorstop or whatever you call
All right. What has he got back there? Use that painting of the woman. Use
it.
that to prop up
Oh,
the table.
why would I use that?
I don't know. Oh, and he's got his oh Brian, but you could have sent that microphone to Lewis, the Yeti, instead of
The
buying a
one
new one.
behind? The one
Yeah.
behind. Yeah. Why didn't
We,
I?
maybe we can tell Lewis to return the other one. I'm sure there's like 30 days. Let's remember. I'm gonna message him right. How much is shipping? Do you think of that
I
versus
don't,
the $120?
oh,
It's probably not
with Canada
$120.
Post. It's probably not $120 now.
Okay, I'm gonna message him before I forget. Oh, Lewis is here in the
Hi,
chat.
Lewis.
Lewis, let's remind us to like we could return. Mike Brian actually has a Yeti, so Brian could send you his Yeti if you're able to still return the one that you just bought.
But I have to wrap it like
Just
okay.
bring it to the place and they'll do it. Well, or not. I don't care, Brian. I'm just if we want to save money, we could do it. But I don't like whatever.
Yeah, I'll
I don't
keep
want
the
you to.
Yeti. It's
I don't want to
fine.
give you a
It's fine.
hardship.
Let Lewis.
Lewis have the brand new Yeti. You have the
This
stinky old Yeti.
what happened to Quebec it has a right to repair law that they're enacting.
What does that mean? Oh, we don't have time. Brian, we got to start. I got so much. I have so much for today, but I want to hear about this later.
No, you don't.
The right to repair law. I'm going to Google it.
You have
Okay.
no care for this law or Quebec.
I mean, I guess I don't have that much care for Quebec, but it doesn't mean like I don't like Quebec. It's just like I just don't care about a lot of things.
Yeah.
I don't care about Saskatchewan equally as I don't care
damn.
about Quebec or any province.
Shots fired. Oh,
aside from mine.
This man is anti-Canadian.
Do you like follow the politics of all the provinces? Like,
Yeah.
Okay, of course you do. All right, let's start the show. All right.
I like them all equally. They're like my children, except
you do.
Alberta. Just kidding. That's a joke.
It's not
for those
okay.
for those in the know about provincial politics.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, welcome everybody to another episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the longest running fantasy hockey podcast in the world, hosted by two guys, one of whom played hockey today. Brian, for the first time in like 10 years, I played ball hockey outdoors, and I even scored a couple goals. So now when I'm like criticizing players or saying like, it's like I know what I'm talking about. So this isn't like before where I was just a nerdy numbers guy. I scored freaking goals today. So with me to share my newfound knowledge of hockey and also to discuss all the injuries and outjuries and hot streaks and cold streaks that we've had all building up over the past week, it's my very good friend, the fantasy hockey robot, my number one co-host, Brian Comb. Brian, how's it going, man?
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. I so much building, and honestly, Elon, I'm afraid of talking even more lest it build just a little bit more. So I'm ready. I'm ready to dig in.
So much building. You mean like just the docket of all the things that I've prepared to talk about?
Yeah, exactly.
I can't help it. I have a problem. I think everything is interesting. As we go, I want the chat to tell me like this could have been cut. Like I won't have hurt feelings. Like I need to know what could have been cut. So we'll go through and people will let me know what didn't belong on the show because I've got a lot here. So let's get right into it. Of course, we'll mention quickly, presented by DobberHockey.com. Super proud to be able to say that every single week. I use Frozen Tools religiously. Like they went down for a little bit or different parts of it because the NHL changed their API. Super frustrating. I had to deal with an issue related to that with game day tweets. But Frozen Tools I think is already back and running fully. So like, they really know what they're doing over there. And yeah, it's a really great resource. But Brian, okay, let's do this. I've split this up until we got a couple longer term injuries. Then we'll do some outjuries and shorter term injuries. A waived player who's Jack Campbell. I don't need to and then some hot and cold streaks. Okay, that's the plan. Starting with an injury that apparently is going to be for a while. So Arturi Lehkonen is hurt for the Colorado Avalanche. And yeah, the word is it's going to be weeks, which is obviously bad news for, I guess, the Avs. They got absolutely destroyed yesterday by St. Louis of all teams. This Avs team, they got shut out a couple times. And it was like, this doesn't seem like something that should happen. I'm sure that won't happen again. But like now it's starting to look like this team might not be that good. And, we talked before about Georgiev and how you were talking about how he's like unstable. And I don't even know if the backup like Prosvetov is that much better. Like they're kind of in trouble now. Like Lehkonen being hurt obviously doesn't help. He has 8 points in 12 games. As far as fantasy goes, though, I will say I traded for Valerie Nichushkin a couple weeks ago, and I was starting to feel like I really, blew that one. But now I'm starting to think like, okay, this I don't want to profit off of someone's injury, but I'm sorry, like this is good news for Valeri Nichushkin because he has taken Lekkonen's spot on the top power play. He also was playing on a line with McKinnon in the last game, but that was this game against St. Louis. So I wouldn't be surprised if the lines will get shaken up. But if Nichushkin holds that top power play spot, I think for anyone who was disappointed with Nichushkin's lackluster start to the season, I think he's a clear winner here. And I think he becomes pretty much a must add if he's been dropped in your league, even shallow leagues.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. This is the break that Nichushkin needed and Nichushkin's managers needed too, because it looks like Lehkonen had pretty well established himself on that top line and top power play and wasn't supposed to be moving, but now he has been moved by the injury in his body. So, yeah, this is a win for Nichushkin. I'm not sure if there are any other really big fantasy impacts here. Like we saw Jonathan Drouin get another turn on the top line with McKinnon and Nichushkin. He got an assist against St. Louis, no shots, pretty classic, like power play too, pretty classic
So
Jonathan Drouin, nothing burger situation, even with the point, like points only, like maybe he creeps above a half point per game. Otherwise, no, like that's still not that interesting. So yeah, I think this is good for Nichushkin, and we'll see if he's still got it, right? Because so far this season, Nichushkin's on just a 50-point pace. Part of that has to be because he's lost a bunch of his power play time, but even without his power play production last year, he would have been close to like just south of 60-point pace last season. So I guess yeah, like I said, now it's sort of crunch time for Nichushkin to reward any managers who have held on to him all the while and maybe in shallower leagues make himself a nice little waiver wire pickup. At 5-on-5, his production's been okay. His shooting percentage is down. His shooting percentage was down last year. He was shooting just 5%, not even 5% last season. This season, Nichushkin is shooting less than 4% and participating on only 56% of the goals that are scored while he's on the ice at 5-on-5. So all of this points to Nichushkin having more to show at 5-on-5 than the 50-point pace, and hey, some power play time to go with it. So this could be, I doubt it's a buy low because everyone's excited now. But Elon, you accidentally bought low a week or two ago, and you can feel good about it. You can feel better about it now than you did then.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, another player on Colorado that I wanted to talk about. I mean, Georgiev. Okay, I don't know if there's much to say. Like we've had Georgiev in tier 2 on Inchmore goalies board. Like we were saying, he was just below the top.
That was you, wasn't it?
What's that? Sorry.
I said that was you, right? Like you were pushing for him to be
in tier one.
Yeah.
I was like saying, like, especially when the news came out that Francouz. What's that? Sorry.
Tier 2 was the compromise.
No, you agreed to tier 2. Then afterwards, I was pushing for tier 1, and you like said, like, let's not. It was like because Francouz was announced to be injured. I was like, oh, he's gonna get a lot of volume on this amazing team. All of a sudden, if the Avs aren't that good, then that's like people who drafted Georgiev. I mean, that's a reason why, like, to not draft goalies super high. Like, generally, the top couple tiers of goalies are predictable, but every once in a while you get burned with one of these players you think is like such a sure thing. Like I thought Georgiev seemed like such a sure thing after last season. And now he's like really hurting his managers. Another player who I thought was like at least solid, like someone who's been good for a while, and I'm surprised to see how cold he is Devon Toews. At this point this season, he is like looking like someone who could maybe be dropped. I didn't even realize how bad it was, but he only has 5 points in 13 games now. He's currently on a run of only 1 point in his last 7 games. Brian, like I just dropped Shane Gostisbehere as a comparison in my cupful division with a bad schedule coming up for Detroit. I've seen some other like somewhat interesting defensemen drop. Like, is there a reason to hold Devon Toews? Like, he's not on the top power play. He gets a lot of ice time. I guess it's a similar situation as last year, but last year he had a 51-point pace. The year before, a 71-point pace. This year, currently only pacing for 32.
Yeah, last year I held a candle for Devon Toews, right? Like I was like, don't worry, like he's just getting unlucky. And like, yes, he wasn't going to repeat his 70-point pace, but I thought he would. I think there were several times I said he was at least the 50-point player that he was and still had a shot at 60-point pace for the whole season, which he, of course, fell about 10 points short. But this season has been worse for sure. His shot rates are down. His ice time is down. He's actually down 2 minutes of ice per night at 5-on-5. And I was trying to dig in to see if that's because like he's playing more short-handed. Like there's like, I tried to figure out if the Avs had less 5-on-5 time as a whole And if that could explain why Taves's ice time at 5-on-5 personally was down, I didn't get that far in figuring it out. So if anybody else knows, let me know. But yeah, it's I mean, you look at the Avs pairs. Um, you've got like Taves is playing with Makar most often, so he's still on the top pair. So I'm not. And the bottom line is, I'm not exactly sure why Taves is getting a little less ice time, or well, it looks like substantially, but I'm couching it with a little just because it might be a small sample thing that I haven't quite figured out. And shooting less, and both of those are bad things. I think Taves probably deserves like a touch better than he's gotten, but I'm looking at like his on ice shooting percentage is healthy. His points participation is like reasonably average. So is his shooting percentage. So, uh, yeah, like it's just another case where I think Devon Taves should be doing better than he is, even though I should know. Like it's been like we're coming up on 65 games, or sorry, no, he played the full 80 last year. So we're coming up on 100 games of this basically. The upshot is that he has 2 or more shots in his last 4 games consecutively after a bunch of ones and zeros in the shot column. So maybe there's hope coming up. But Elon, yeah, you might have to be careful if you have Devon Taves on your roster. You might be snoozing.
Yeah, we'll obviously talk about some defensemen as we go through this show. So maybe we'll see if we come up with someone who we think maybe you would drop Taves for. Next, long-term injury. So yeah, Frederick Anderson is out indefinitely. Turned out it was like blood clot. So obviously wishing him the best. They said it was like not life-threatening. Or the fact, anytime you see a tweet where it's like not life-threatening, that like is very scary to me at first. Because like I wasn't even thinking it was until you said that. But I mean, they said not. So hopefully he'll be fine. They said it's also not like hopefully career ending. So we'll see him back at some point. In the meantime, obviously the Hurricanes called up Kochekov. And so we're going to be rolling Ranta and Kochekov for a little bit. Ranta had a good first game against Buffalo, got a win. After Anderson got injured, then he had not such a great game against Florida. That led to Kochekov getting the start. Oh, it was a back-to-back, so Kochekov was probably always going to get that start. And he had himself a very nice game against Tampa, shutting them out, stopping 22. I assume moving forward, this is probably a 50-50. Like a lot of people were like writing on the Discord, Kochekov season. Should I jump on him? Like my opinion is like jump on him if you want a goalie that will probably play 50% of the games and maybe do pretty well. Though again, as we always say with Carolina, you might like here, you only made 22 saves in the shutout, right? So if he would have led in 1 goal or 2 goals, all of a sudden that's like not even such a great game, even though it's a 2 goals against game. So that's the problem sometimes with these goalies on teams that don't let up a lot of shots. But anyway, I'm like, anyway, so it's more a news thing, but I don't know. Do you disagree that it's like going to be 50-50? You think one of these goalies has a chance to really run away with this thing?
Yeah, well, I remember last year when we were in a similar situation and it was Kochekov is going to split even though he was doing well. And then that didn't happen. He got a run of games and then it never happened again. Elon, I think I have to at least just assume that Carolina is going to keep doing what they've done for the majority of the last however long, and just rotate between their goalies. I actually just did a quick look on Evolving Hockey to see. Would you want to guess, Elon, just according to Delta Fenwick save percentage, save percentage against expected? Which do you want to rank the Carolina goalies and see if you get it right?
Okay, well, sure. Like Kochekov only had like 3 games or something to start. I know he wasn't that good.
Okay, so I'm going actually to the start of last season. And the sample size is like Kochekov played the fewest games or the fewest minutes, I'll say 1,300 minutes, and Anderson has played the most, which is just over 1,800. It's like there's not
I'll
hugely
guess
different sample sizes.
I mean, I don't know. I'll go Anderson, Ranta, Kochekov, and you'll tell me that I'm wrong.
Yeah, it's Ranta, Kochekov, Anderson.
Okay.
Freddie Anderson has been the worst according to this measure, the save percentage versus expected. So, and Ranta's been the best. And Ranta, I've gone on the show over the years. Like Ranta has always looked good. He just can't stay healthy long enough to be really good. So yeah, I expect this to split. And I'm with you, Elon. If you want it to be Ranta season or Kochekov season, it's like they start 50% of the time. And don't expect if you get more, that's a nice little gift for you, but I wouldn't expect it or make any plans based on that expectation.
Yeah, obviously we've got Lewis and Shams here in the chat. Like if anything changes on short shifts, someone will discuss if it's like looking like one goalie is getting like, more starts than the other. But for now, I'm going to assume 50-50. By the way, back to the Georgiev quickly. Trevor had a good comparison here in the chat. Georgiev is this year's Markstrom. Hopefully not. But yeah, Markstrom seemed like such a sure thing last year, and he was such a dud. And so far, it's looking the same. But it's early.
Yeah,
I'm not saying I agree. Like I still like don't see like the Avs being this bad. Like they have so many good players. Like that's not the
they're
Letkin
not.
being gone. Yeah,
Do
but
you remember? Do you remember last week how I like talked about where the Avs ranked in both like generating chances at 5-on-5 and suppressing chances at 5-on-5, and they were basically top of the table at both of those things. Just
yeah,
have
but
a like having trouble scoring, like shooting percentage, and definitely having trouble in net. And like, yeah, that could like I guess the difference that I'm making here is that last year Calgary was like not very good, right?
I
Like
see.
there was a lot of other stuff going on this year. The thing that's going on seems to be that Georgiev stinks, and
Yeah,
I'm not sure what else.
I mean, yeah, this 8-2 loss to St. Louis yesterday. I'm seeing Binnington had to stop 36 of 38. So yeah, it wasn't as if Colorado wasn't shooting. You would think against Binnington, if this was last year, they would have scored 5 easy on Binnington. Anyway.
Do we have St. Louis scheduled for later in the show tonight?
Yeah, I think I have some St. Louis notes here. Oh yeah, I was going to talk about the
Okay.
double hat trick when I get to the hot streaks.
Okay.
You want to talk
All
about them
right.
now though? Just go for it. What do you have to say about St. Louis?
Well, no, we were all waiting on a lot of these guys, like on Buchnevich and Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou. Like the questions were definitely ramping up about like who to drop and like how much longer do I need to wait on this guy. Um, I want to point out at least that Robert Thomas has pointed in in 9 of his last 10 games, including 4 assists in that game against Colorado. He also had a 5 game goal streak, which is not what you would like for Robert Thomas to even score 5 goals. Usually takes a few months. So that he did it in consecutive games on I'm just doing on 10 shots. So obviously like not sustainable, but a nice little run. And I just don't feel like, when I did my little St. Louis sucks rant a few weeks back, I guess it was still spotty enough to not really count on Robert Thomas doing much, but he's been there for most of the season. So shout out to him. Buchnevich showing signs of life with that hat trick, 3 goals on 6 shots, but they were against Colorado, so can you really count it? And he had assists in 2 of his last 3 before that. And then Jordan Kyrou, still quiet. Right, he like anyone wanting to see him make some noise against Colorado. Sorry, like just the single assist, and I still again like he's shooting the lights out. Like he's got 47 shots through 13 games, and he's only scored twice. So that's a 4% shooting percentage. I expect better from Jordan Kyrou, especially because he does get a fair amount of good looks on the power play. That just he has yet to score a power play goal. Talked about St. Louis not getting a lot of power play opportunities either, and maybe their power play being a little messed up and not being so effective. But yeah, just for anyone still like with patience on Buchnevich and Thomas. Well, Thomas is paid off. You haven't really had to be patient. Buchnevich might be about to pay off, and Kyrou, yeah, I'd still hold. But
Definitely.
I'll go to my earlier thing still and just say like we just don't know how many goals St. Louis is going to manage this year. But I don't know. After seeing the 8 they dropped on Colorado, it's like, oh, well, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they weren't that bad last year, and they have kind of the same players. I would definitely try to buy Kyrou if you can find the frustrated manager who's now like, they scored 8 goals and he had only an assist. Like, what the heck? Like, now's the time, I think, to try to get him for cheap because, like you're saying, he's taking a lot of shots. They're going to start going into, and I really like Jordan Kyrou. I think he's a really good player. Also, I guess another hot player on St. Louis I was going to bring up. Oh, there is Braden Shen who scored the hat trick. I think in general we know what Braden Shen is at this point. He's like generally rosterable. Like Inca Cup full of 14-team league, he's generally rostered all season long. Maybe last year I recall him being dropped at one point. Someone added him and then he was held the rest of the year. So I think like clearly he's shown why he's good. Like he's a solid player. He's not going to get you hat tricks too often. Another guy though that I think we had all completely left for dead, but I need to bring him up is Torrey Krug, who Brian, I know you've always been a big fan of, at least in fantasy because he falls so late in drafts and he's a top power play guy. And hey, like just like you said about Buchnevich, like he's starting to pay off. Like he has now a 3-game point streak. He had a goal and an assist against Colorado. So I mean, I'm definitely not going to come on and be like Torrey Krug season, like time to go and grab Krug and hold him forever. But it's generally tough to find top power play guys, and that power play had 2 goals in the last game. So it's not a
No
power play that
points.
doesn't do anything.
Yeah, no points for Krug on either of them. But
He was there.
yeah, and he had 6 shots against Arizona on Thursday. Three game point streak. And anyone in leagues also where Justin Falk has been dropped, He's got 5 points in his last 5 games, points in 4 of his last 5 shots. His block numbers are crazy. He's picked up 17 blocks in his last 5 games, including 5 against Colorado. So also some value you might find in free agency from anyone who was impatient earlier.
Yeah. Okay. So anyways, I was on Carolina, Brian. I talked about Anderson. I wanted to bring up a
Right.
cold streak over on the Hurricanes. Seth Jarvis. We're starting to get some questions like, what are we doing with this guy? He had a good start to the year, like a really good start to the year. Like he was basically point per game through 10 games. He's now pointless in 4, not taking a lot of shots. But again, it's like it's only 4 games, right? Like 4 games isn't that many games, but also we need to bring it up on the show. Like, would you be nervous as a Seth Jarvis manager and start to wonder if you need to like consider dropping him in shallower leagues, trying to trade him, or do you think it's like, don't worry about it? Like the Seth Jarvis from earlier in the season is coming back. He's 21 years old, so I guess you can't
Yeah.
expect him to be fully consistent forever.
I think that might be part of it. And you know what? There have been points. Well, there was a point earlier in the season when Jarvis started so strong with two goal games. They came back to back, and that gave him 4 goals on 16 shots over 5 games. So he was shooting high, but it seemed like I missed a memo about like how like anointed he was, and it feels like everyone is just waiting for that Seth Jarvis breakout. And me too. All right. But I'm just not sure it's like we're watching it happen. I'm looking at his 5-on-5 numbers. They're actually like a step back from last year in terms of shot rates and danger rate. Yeah, like his points participation is a little low, but I also feel kind of like this is just like okay, he's been cold, and I'm not saying drop him, but I am saying that I think he's like a mid to bottom roster player. And I think he was being considered as like definitely a mid end guy. And I could see him being, your 50-55 point player who gets dropped, like who it's okay to drop and cycle back. Like not quite like Michael Bunting last year, because Bunting was worth picking up and holding at a certain point. And the same might be true of Jarvis. So maybe that is a good comparison. It's just, yeah, I just don't see anything to really sell me that Jarvis has hit the big time. Like his minutes are up, which is great, and that's thanks to playing more time on the power play. But like I said, he's just sort of taken a bit of a step back in other ways. And 5 power play points through 15 games is fantastic. I'm not sure it's something he's going to keep up. In fact, 3 of those came in the first 5 games. So I think that the pace we've been seeing lately from him is more realistic. And also Jarvis is really slowed down shooting. Like without the points, he has just 7 shots in his last 6 games combined. He's only taken more than 2 shots or 2 or more shots twice in those 7 games. So these are reasons to think that Seth Jarvis, like not a drop, but not a lock for your roster either. I feel like there was a leap with Jarvis that everyone thought or hoped he had taken, and this is just a little reminder, I guess, this cold streak that he hasn't done it yet.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm like, I guess higher on Jarvis than you. I guess, like everything you're saying makes sense. At the end of the day, like to me, I just see like top line and top power play with Aho. The last game, it was Aho and Svechnikov and Jarvis on a line. Like, I just really like his deployment. I think he's really good. I don't know, but like, I guess we'll see. Like, of the 2 cold streaks we've talked about so far, like Devon Taves and Seth Jarvis, I'm definitely like a lot more confident in Jarvis bouncing back than Taves.
Me too.
Okay.
Yeah, and I do love his deployment. He's still in a good place to succeed. Just at the point we often make is top line, top power play doesn't mean as much in Colorado or in Carolina as it does in other cities. So, like that's a part of my thinking too. And I still think 60-point pace through the season for Jarvis, pretty reasonable thought. I'm just saying that 50 to 55 is not out of the question either.
Okay, fair enough. We have one more set of I guess longer term injuries to discuss, and we will get to them in just a sec. You're listening to Keeping Karlsson. All right, Brian, we are back. I want to talk about Chicago. I'm going to start it with a sad context because Taylor Hall, Andreas Athanasiou, and Jared Tenorti are all injured. They all got injured in the same game, which was a bummer for them. It was a game where they won, and it was a very exciting game, and a game where Connor Bedard went nuts and had 2 goals and 2 assists. He's followed that up today in this 4-3 loss to Florida. Man, imagine if Chicago had like a couple more good players. Like, anyway, maybe if Taylor Hall was fully healthy. But yeah, Bedard, another 2 goals today. I was seeing in the Discord, like people like discussing this being like 2 like highlight reel goals, like goals of the season. Like this guy is incredible. I think anyone who I don't know, in my opinion, I think it's done in terms of like anyone who was waiting on him in drafts is like, I'll take a more sure thing. I feel like this guy is a sure thing, and I wish I could redo my draft and get him in like the third round, fourth round, whatever. But what are you going to do? We're up to 13 points in 13 games for Connor Bedard. He's incredible. We don't even have to really discuss Bedard. I was going to bring up his line mates though, because I think Bedard is so great that you just want to have the players that have exposure to him, and that's changed. Even so, Taylor Hall's injured, but like even before he got hurt, he was off the top line. He was already like falling. I was really surprised to see that. I thought that he and Bedard would be locked together for a while. But in today's game and in the last game, it was Nick Foligno and Philip Kurashev on the top line with Bedard. And then the top power play had, and again, with Hall out now today, we were seeing Corey Perry, Nick Foligno, Kurashev also. Okay. So, and Seth Jones. So Corey Perry's been on the top power play all year, but he doesn't get the best even strength deployment. But I think you got to look at guys like Nick Foligno and Philip Kurashev. And I can't believe I'm saying that because I don't think they're like especially great players or anything. But like Chicago doesn't play now for a few days, so maybe you can wait. But if you want to stream later in the week, give me a guy on the top line and top power play with Bedard, not as a season long hold, but Foligno and Kurashev. I'm just like mentioning their names as guys exposed to one of the best players in the league already, even as an 18-year-old.
Yep. I think that's the entirety of the conversation. Like neither of these guys seem to scream anything special or interesting in terms of potential. But the same way that we want someone playing with McDavid, we want someone playing with Bedard, especially when Bedard, like, I don't know, is he finding his form? Is that a one? Like, we'll see what happens in the next several games with Bedard, and if he can keep doing what he's been doing consistently. But especially if he does, yeah, you want the guys exposed. So thank you for naming Philip Kurashev and Nick Foligno.
Foligno, by the way, is now up to 8 points in 13 games, a 50-point pace. Foligno hasn't paced for more than 50 in like 8 years. I'm just looking through the season. Man, Foligno's been around for a really long time. He started in Ottawa in 2007, 2008. He's 36 years old.
36.
What a career.
Ancient.
What a career for Nick Foligno. He's played 1,094 games. He's less than a point per game. He's at 0.49 points per game. So maybe Bedard can help Foligno get to above half point per game on his career by the end of this season. That'd be kind of nice.
That's, you know what, that's more exciting to me now than the Alex Ovechkin goal watch.
Yeah, is Foligno gonna crack 0.5? Okay, Brian. So that's it for the injuries for now. We still have some more injuries that are more just like shorter term. But I want to get to some outjuries. We got to get some happy news here, and I want to start over in Columbus. And Columbus is playing today against the Rangers, and it's the second game of the return for Patrik Laine, who did score a goal in his first game back. Nothing so far. I'm seeing that the Blue Jackets got a goal. Justin Danforth by Eric Goodbranson and Zach Werenski were the assists. So pretty schmoly goal there. I guess Werenski obviously is a good guy. And actually, Werenski had been cold for a while, so it is nice to see him getting points. But yeah, so Patrik Laine is back. Looking at the lines, it looked like he went right back to the top line, of course, playing with... Oh, sorry, not typing fast enough here. CBJ. Top line with... Yeah, okay. Johnny Gaudreau and Boone Jenner. That was for that last game against Detroit. For today, though, I'm seeing things. What is Columbus is really frustrating, Brian. I this game just started, so I wasn't able to see these updated lines until right now live. The lines today are, so now it's Gaudreau with Roslovic and Sillinger, and then Laine with Jenner and Chinnikov. So it's like Chinnikov, I guess, bumped Gaudreau from the top line is one way to look at it.
I'm really like, is Laine playing winger? Do you know, like Jenner must be centering that line, I assume.
Yeah, so maybe Laine's winger. I don't know. So we'll have to check it maybe on short shifts. They can get an update here. Okay. Johnny Gaudreau, though, oh my gosh. Like I was about to come on here, Brian, and be like, maybe Laine back is going to help Gaudreau get going. Gaudreau is like, he's like a Huberdeau. It's like the curse of the Calgary Flames here. Like one came in, one went out. They both stink. Like Gaudreau's now at 6 points in 15 games, only 1 point in his last 5. We'll see what he does today. I'm not like super optimistic if he's going to be playing with Roslovic and Cole Sillinger. No offense. But like, yeah. So what's my takeaway here? Hopefully Laine is good because he was also having a cold start to the season. Hopefully Gaudreau could do better, but I'm not even like so super optimistic. And yeah, I don't really have like a question for you. It's just, if anything, like I wanted the fun thing I could say is that Laine is back, and also the second line has stuck together. Marchenko, Fantilli, Voronkov. They've been producing every single game. these three get a point. Voronkov was my guy in the summer that I was like, watch out, Dynasty League people. And everyone laughed and laughed. Said, oh, Elon talks too much about that. Okay, so he's doing good so far. We'll see. Okay,
Six, you should
Marchenko got
say specifically, like you take some 6 points in 8 games for Voronkov. He barely shoots. He hits just a little bit. He'll block every so often. His minutes are still low. But yeah, Elon, you can put a little feather in your cap for what Veron. And now, like that's kind of it's a really fun line with Marchenko and Fantilli. It's like they're putting all their upside guys together because Voronkov is now an upside guy as deemed as anointed on keeping Karlsson by you.
also, I think like again, I don't want to like go too. I'm not like so excited. Like Voronkov to me was exciting as like someone when you're in a deep dynasty league and all the good prospects are taken. And I was like, oh, there's a guy that's like available that you could add out of free agency, which never happens. But like he is like huge. So I feel like once he gets more used to the NHL, I feel like more hits should come. Like generally people like him. Like, apparently he was like touted as like going to be a big hitter. So we'll see. Okay, if he increases there. Marchenko was benched for a couple of games and he's come back super strong, taking a lot of shots, scoring some goals. And like Fantilli obviously is still also getting used to life in the pros and is looking good. So that line is fun. Columbus plays 4 times next week. I would definitely stream in any of those three. And the order for me would probably be Marchenko, then Fantilli, then Voronkov. Though I think Fantilli is the more likely guy to be worth holding all season, but Marchenko gives you more shots. But yeah, so but I don't know. What do you want? Do you want to chat about Gaudreau and Line A at all? I'll just throw to you,
Well,
and you could say anything you want about Columbus.
well, we chatted not too long about long. Oh, well, we chatted not too long ago about Gaudreau, and like, yeah, he's not doing as well as we'd hope, but I see enough reason to believe that Gaudreau is still going to be okay. Like last year, he was a 76-point pace player. I don't see that being out of the question with what he's showing in his underlying numbers. But
Trev, mark this down.
with all these weird, I didn't say he's going to. All right, it's just but without and you come on, don't throw me.
Come on,
I was
dumbass.
given a butt as you said that. All this line business in Columbus is super weird. And honestly, if you're not playing with Boone Jenner as your centerman, I don't think I can really expect a whole lot from you. Like I think he's the only stable centerman on the team, and Johnny Gaudreau I think benefits. Like right, like he thrived with Sean Monahan for a time, but then Elias Lindholm. I think Gaudreau needs that. It sure seems like it. So while Gaudreau looks okay, I still am not 100% sure that he's going to get it back up to that 75-point pace he had last season, or 76, excuse me. Maybe he'll fall more between the 65, 70-point range, which, by the way, is where he was for a couple years in Calgary before that last big contract year breakout where he had 115 points in 82 games. He's always been this up and down guy. But one thing I'll point out, 1 goal on 36 shots. That's 2.8% shooting. 1 power play point so far, despite being on the top unit. Neither of those things are going to hold to be true. So there's a lot of regression in a good way to come for Gaudreau that will be automatic. The question is just how high, especially, like I said, lines keep getting shuffled. It's super weird. Just like put Jenner, Liney, and Gaudreau together. Call it a day.
Well, they did that yesterday and they lost. So I guess that's why they decided to switch it around today. But yeah, like, and also in that game yesterday, Gaudreau didn't take a shot. So he's not going to be able to improve that shooting percentage without actually taking a shot. So hopefully he'll be able to improve that today.
Yeah, it's 2 consecutive games without a shot. That's like 37 minutes. And so far tonight, 6 minutes of ice, shotless.
Come on, Gaudreau. Yikes. Whatever. I don't have him. If I had him, I'd be really nervous. Like I know I don't think I would drop him, but like I'd want to so badly. By the way, Brian, I dropped Barrett Hayton. I couldn't wait anymore. It felt great. It felt great. And then yesterday, Arizona kept scoring goal after goal after goal. And every time I would check, and obviously Hayton wasn't part of it. And instead of feeling this like dread and anger, it was like, good. Like, I'm not surprised.
You were cheering.
Then he did get like an assist.
The Schadenfreude.
Yeah. Well, no one else added him yet. So I'm not hurting anybody. But he did get an assist on the empty netter. I'm talking about Barrett Hayton here. I know this is a bit of a divergence. But yeah, Gaudreau, I think, is better than Barrett Hayton. But it's not good. Okay. Another out jury, Brian, in Florida. Sam Bennett is back again. I got good news and bad news for you. Okay, the good news is he played the whole game today against Chicago. So that's much better than his first attempt to return, where he played like 5 minutes and then, got injured again. The bad news is that Bennett was not an impact guy. He didn't take any shots himself. He did have a couple blocks I'm seeing, and he threw a hit. And also Bennett wasn't on the top power play. I thought maybe, and maybe he still could, but they were rolling with obviously Barkov and Reinhardt and Kachuk and then Carter Verhaeghe on the top power play. I thought maybe like Bennett could take the Verhaeghe spot, but that didn't happen. We'll see if this is an easing in thing. Obviously, Sam Bennett becomes a lot less interesting if he's just like the second line center, which is still decent. Like playing with Verhaeghe and Kachuk is like pretty good line mates. And I'm not going to read too much into like 1-0 game, just coming back from an injury where he like re-injured. I'm just happy he finished the game. But yeah, just something to monitor there. I don't, I obviously, yeah, you want to see the power play. Also, I'll just mention on Florida before I throw to you, Sam Reinhart. Holy, like this guy is like popping off big time. And we talked about him. I think I already mentioned this. How like we talked about him in the summer. This one had a huge second half of last season. So I think if you just look at the stats from January on, this guy's like 100+ point guy. He's currently now another big game today. So it was 2 goals and 2 assists for Reinhart against Chicago, following he had 3 multi-point games before that. That was his 4th multi-point game in a row. Reinhart's up to 21 points in 14 games for 123-point pace. Playing with Barkov is great, clearly, but obviously also Reinhart is really great. So anyone who drafted him could just feel like super amazing right now.
Yeah, going into the season, we thought Reinhardt would be someone who would be like a point per game player, and he's blowing, he's blowing like, and that was the optimistic take too. It's like, yeah, I think Sam Reinhardt's good, and yeah, I think he will get back to being point per game, which he's only done once in his career. That was his first year in Florida, but he's looked good enough to have expected that again. I did not expect this exactly. He's shooting 18%. Of course, that's a little high, participating in 86% of the goals scored while he's on the ice, of which there are plenty, because Florida is shooting 13% with Reinhart on the ice. So those are all big parts of his numbers. So some regression to come. I don't expect him to sustain a 123-point pace, but now I'm like, oh, maybe he can be point per game plus this season. Maybe he can sustain 90 or more. Elon, the one other guy that I wanted to bring up is Carter Verhaeghe, just because there was a lot of concern before Bennett was healthy about what Verhaeghe was doing. And my line was, well, let's see what happens when Bennett gets back and the line stabilized. And Verhaeghe was like, no, I got this. 6 points in his last 6 games, 20 shots in those 6 games, 3 goals, 3 assists. Holding down a spot on the top power play for 5 games and counting. This could be a great season if Verhaeghe holds on to that top power play. Last year, he was a 74-point pace player with largely power play 2 deployment. So he could be a point per game player if he does hold up on that top unit, which remains to be seen. I'm not getting ahead of myself, but it just another the same thing happened last year. Carter Verhaeghe, bit of a slow start, picked it up about 10, 15 games in, did the same this year, and he's on track. Good to see.
Yeah, good to see, except that I have Sam Bennett in the Keeping Karlsson Ultimate Patron Fantasy League, so I kind of hope that Verhaeghe gets bumped from the top power play, but why would they? Right now, it's going well. Also, I'll mention quickly on Florida that both Montour and Ekblad are like starting to see the horizon of coming back. Montour, apparently, according to the latest tweet, you can go to gamedaytweets.com to see it. Jameson Olive tweeted saying that Marie said there's a chance both Bennett and Montour return at the end of the California trip. Bennett already back now. We're in a 10-day window. We're probably going to see these guys back. And he stated that Ekblad will take a little bit longer than Montour. So like we're coming up really close. Like the end of that trip is like this weekend, or like in a week from now, I should say. So yeah, get ready. If you drafted Montour, you're getting him soon. He's definitely, I'm just going to say it. Like, I think he's definitely bumping OEL from the top power play. And so get ready to ditch Oliver Ekman-Larsson once Montour comes back, and get excited to put Montour into your lineup. But Brian, okay, let's go to the next defenseman ouchery that's already happened. It is Jared Spurgeon, and just checking in now, Dallas is beating Minnesota 7-3 today, and this game is still going. We had a couple questions about, sorry. We had a couple questions about Jason Robertson, and we were going to talk about him in the cold streak section. I should mention that right now I'm seeing to start the third period, Robertson has already popped a couple, so that will make those nervous Robertson managers feel a little bit better. But yeah, I wanted to talk about Spurgeon, who did not have a big impact offensively in his first game. Today, also no points. He's +2. That's actually very impressive to be +2 when your team is losing 7-3. Looks
This
like
feels that's very Spurgeon-y. This is like exactly Jared Spurgeon. Didn't someone tweet that like he's the best defenseman in the world, or
I,
his coach said it?
yeah, his coach or the GM, someone said
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And like that's it. Like I think Spurgeon's impact is huge and massive and shows up nowhere near the score sheet as we've seen time and time again. Like he spent a season. He spent 2 seasons. Well, parts of 2 seasons. So 130 games seeing top power play deployment for the most part. He had 23 power play points to show for that, which is like better than second power play deployment, but definitely not up to snuff with what we'd expect from a first power play quarterback. And Elon, I know you're invested in Spurgeon because you added him and stashed him, right? When you had a chance. And now
No,
you
I took
want
him actually with my last pick of the
Oh,
draft, and then he got
okay.
injured then before like I had a chance
Mm.
to see him play. But I'm not going to be invested for long, Brian. I'm pretty like next week Minnesota doesn't play till Saturday, Sunday. I'm not going to hold Spurgeon all week
Yeah,
for that. Why?
no need. I wouldn't even hold him if they played 3 times, it would still be I would still be I could hold him, but I would still be checking them to like make absolutely sure there's not better options out there.
Yeah. Like who knows? Like maybe I'll get back to him on Saturday. If, like I don't think he's like a nothing. Like he gets his blocks, so he has that nice floor. But yeah, no shots also today. Man, Minnesota, I wasn't planning on bringing this up with them, but their goaltending is a problem. Gustafsson bad flurries getting destroyed today. They've got Brian Jesper Wallstedt in the minors crushing it. I just saw recently that he won like the goalie of the week or something like that. Like at what point you don't know. But this is like a rhetorical question. I'll just throw out there. Like, at what point do they call up Wallstead and try to turn this season around? Like Minnesota's 5-7-2. They're about to be 5-8-2. Like, I think this could be a good team. Obviously, it might be the defense also. Having the best defenseman in the world back maybe could help. But I think having a goalie that can stop the puck could also help. And I do not think that Gustafsson or Fleury is the answer for them right now. So why not try? Unless maybe they're just thinking the defense is bad and they don't even want to like put Wallstead through this. Like let him just continue to have this like incredible season in the minors. But they need to switch that at some point.
Yeah, I mean their goaltending has really been letting them down, but I will push back on the notion that their defense has been letting them down. Like they haven't been exceptional, but they also haven't been awful. Like Minnesota's probably like at the top of the middle of the pack, if that makes any kind of sense in goalie protection. Basically, their goalies should both be doing better than they have been. And lately at 5-on-5, remember I said how Gustafsson was bad and Marc-Andre Fleury was like slightly less bad. Fleury's been at least doing better
Well, not
lately.
today.
Going
You'll have
going
to
into
update your stats. Yeah.
yeah, going into today. But Gustafsson's still like lost completely. It's a weird, like it's not so out of line with where like in his career he's looked great and then hit a bump and looked great and then hit a bump and looked great and now he's hit a bump again. So I assume he'll look great again one day. But yeah, Elon, the question is like, hey, if Minnesota's serious about contending, and they have been, I think they've been really disappointed with how they've fared in the last couple of years. Like they've been hyped up to have better seasons than they've ended up having. That, but as per final results on playoff performance. So if Wallstead is crushed, I think it's an interesting idea. If neither of their two NHL goalies are cutting it, do we see Wallstedt get a chance? Fun storyline, fun long shot storyline to keep an eye on.
Yeah. Here's a fun question for you, Brian, that I don't like. I have no idea what the answer is. I'm curious to get your opinion. Let's say that Minnesota decided to, pull a Cal Peterson, pull a Jack Campbell, send down their goalie that's locked in for 3 years in Gustafsson. Do you think if they waived Gustafsson to send him down, he's at 3.75 mil for now this season and still 2 more after that. Quite a big contract for someone that's doing this terribly. I wonder if he would clear waivers or if another team would take a shot on him. Because yeah, like he could be one of those goalies where you grab and then you start regretting it because he's terrible and he's on your books for 3 years at a pretty decent cap hit.
I mean, his cap hit is not as bad as some other goaltending
Yeah,
mistakes
not as
out
bad as
there.
Campbell.
Like
Yeah.
he's sub 4 million, which still seems like, hey, that was a reasonable bet to make. Although, so like you brought up Cal Peterson, who signed for more. And Gustafsson doesn't appear to have any kind of clause that would prevent him from being sent down. I'm sure he would get claimed. Like I'm certain.
Mm,
I would. I
I'd
would
be
buy an
curious.
NHL franchise just to claim him.
Yeah, well, the Oilers could use a goalie, but probably not another goalie who's not doing anything. But okay, so we're on outjuries here, right? So, oh yeah, Jason Zucker is back for Arizona. It's not like that meaningful of a thing. I'll mention the line. So they had this like big 7-5 win over Nashville yesterday. Zucker was not even like on the line that we expected him to be in. Like we thought he'd be playing with Cooley. Oh wait, sorry, that's not even true. Sorry, let me repeat that. Zucker has been back playing with Logan Cooley, though it's been Zucker, Cooley, and Michael Carlsson. And then Michelli, Bjugstad, and Lawson Krause have stayed together. And then, of course, Schmaltz, Keller, and Hayton have stayed together. So, like, Logan Cooley's really starting to go off. Like, he's on a nice little hot run here. He just picked up 3 assists. Actually, okay, I shouldn't say that because he has 3 assists in this last game. And before that, he was actually pointless for 3 games, but some 6-shot game in there for Cooley. But anyway, so Cooley's good. Maybe I don't want to over emphasize how good, but Zucker is like not that good, right? Like last year, Zucker looked good in Pittsburgh, had 50-point pace. So far this year, only 2 goals and no assists in 7 games. So I'm bringing this up for completion's sake, but I don't think we're going to be recommending to jump on line 2 or 3 and not top power play Jason Zucker, right?
No, I agree. There's only been 1 game out of the 7 Zucker's played where he's taken more than 2 shots. He took 7 shots and it was against St. Louis, so take that for what it's worth. He played St. Louis again a couple games later and had just 1 shot, or that was his return from injury, actually. Yeah, and like low ice time, I think maybe Zucker's still just easing into things, less than 13 minutes in the 2 games that Zucker's been back since returning from injury. But yeah, Elon's still decidedly streamer territory.
Okay, so next up, I want to go to Brian, your Ottawa Senators. They've had an outjury, which is like not a generally fantasy relevant player, though he's been good so far. Artem Zub came back, and since his return, he's played 2 games. He scored a goal against Vancouver, no points, but 4 shots, 2 hits, and 3 blocks versus Calgary. I think Zub is really looking like a good peripherals floor guy this season. If you're in a league where, they count hits and blocks as a categories league, he looks really good. Even in the cupful, like, in this last game where he didn't get any points, he's still worth like 3.5, 4, like fantasy points is like pretty good. It's the same as getting an assist basically. So Zub might be someone to look at, though I think maybe a bigger impact could be to maybe Eunice Corpusalo. Like I know that Zub is considered I think I mentioned on the show, like my wife's father is like really obsessed with the Sens, and he was really upset when Zub was injured and was saying how he's like the Mark Mathot, and like they need someone like that so that the Erik Karlsson can be creative and do stuff. And so with Zub there, for what it's worth, Corpusalo just had a really nice game, stopped 25 of 26 against Calgary for the win. So maybe our Corpusalo shares have all gone up in value a little bit now that the Sens have this really good stay-at-home defenseman back in the lineup.
Maybe. Like that's optimistic. I don't have a whole like Zub is good. And he is like a real backbone of that unit. He plays big minutes, like you said, Elon. He's great at peripheral getting. I just don't know. Like I still don't know if Corpusalo is good or not. I should say that actually, like according to his Delta Fenwick save percentage, so saves against expected based on his workload, he's doing pretty good this year. And I'm not sure I've given him credit because there's been a bunch of like blow ups where he hasn't looked good. But overall, at 5-on-5, his expected Fenwick is 931, and he's putting up a 942 Fenwick, which is that's a very good number. That's like not necessarily the top of the table, but like just outside the top 3 or 5 usually. So I guess that's kind of the top of the table. Where he's really suffering, Corpusalo, is on the penalty kill. So maybe I've been, which we know is not sustainable, right? So maybe I've been harsh on Corpusalo, and I like this moment, Elon. Zub can't do it all by himself. Like he's not going to fix everything, and Shabbat is still missing, which is like a huge piece that is also needed on the Sens blue line. But at least this will sort of stem some of the hurt from that. And thank you for the fresh look at Eunice Corpusalo, who maybe is working out a little better than I have given him credit for to date.
Yeah, and hey, even if he's not amazing, if Ottawa has decent defense, that's no, we don't have to worry about like above expected, because if Ottawa could make the expected lower, then you know what I mean? Like that helps. We've seen a lot of goalies. I know you always bring up Devin Dubnyk, who was really great in fantasy, even though he wasn't better than expected. But not to
Yeah,
say
like,
that, Ottawa's going to have the same defense as Minnesota did for those years, but Zub will
yeah.
help.
And that's a fair point, because even you're right. Like the expected that Ottawa's been offering their goalies is not great. They are the 4th worst team in shot threat suppression. Yeah. Only Columbus, Chicago, and San Jose have allowed higher danger shots per 60 minutes than the Senators at 5-on-5. So that's not a good group to find yourself amongst. And like they've been missing personnel, so we'll see. We'll see if Zub helps. And when is can you remind me when Shabbat is scheduled to be back? Do you know offhand?
Oh, it's like not for a while. I think it was like supposed to be if you so the latest was a tweet. Brian, I have this like hotkey now. I press N space, then I write Shabbat, and it goes right to the game day tweets page for
Ah,
Shabbat. I got it so fast.
I got to do that.
Elliot Friedman on October 27th said, Coach DJ Smith announces Shabbat out 4 to 6 weeks. And now it's November 12th, so it's been like a couple weeks. So yeah, a couple more weeks, maybe
2
two
to
to four more
4.
weeks.
Yeah.
We'll see. And Brandstrom also out. Okay. Anyway, Brian, we still have another outjury that's coming soon. Then we're gonna get back to some more of those injuries. Unfortunately, we can't get away from them. We'll be back in just a sec. You're listening to Keeping Karlsson. All right, we are back, Brian. We had 2 days in a row. Talking about outjuries here. We had 2 days in a row where we thought that Carter Hart was going to come back for Philly. He was announced as a starter on Friday. Then they're like, actually, no, he's ill. So he's not playing. Erson's going to play. And then it was announced on Saturday. Okay, now Carter Hart is back. And then like right before the game, I was like, actually, no, he's still ill. So Cal Peterson's coming in. So we're still waiting for Carter Hart to come back. Philly doesn't play now until Wednesday. So if you're looking at next week's, head-to-head matchup, at least now you can keep him stashed for a couple more days. I'd assume he'll get over this illness on Wednesday, but I guess no guarantees. While I'm on Philly, this is like the millionth time on this show and on Short Shifts that his name's been brought up, but I just have to like bring up Travis Sanheim one more time, just because he's like kept it up like big time, right? Like he had a goal and 2 assists versus Anaheim. We'll see how he does. Or no, then he was pointless against LA yesterday, which was a really good win for Philly over LA. I wasn't expecting that, especially with Cal Peterson in that revenge game, Brian, for Cal
Revenge
Peterson.
game for yeah,
And
I
also a
thought
revenge game for Sean Walker, who had a better game than Travis Sanheim, for what it's worth. But anyway, Sanheim's up to 14 points in 15 games. So yeah, I feel like a lot of people probably thought like sell high when he was, doing really well before. But if you sold high, you've missed out on like a lot of multi-point games. I probably still sell high, like depending on what you can get. Obviously, like it's hard to imagine Sanheim is like a 70-point defenseman now, but he could be a 60-point. Like, I mean, he's looking pretty good.
he doesn't seem to have a whole lot of competition for the role he's playing on the team, which is, I mean, it looked like he was on the power play without Konechny, but with Atkinson and Couturier. So like it's hard to say which is the top unit on some nights in
It'll
Philly.
change every day,
Yeah,
anyways.
exactly. But I like that Sanheim consistently has a couple shots a night. Well, sorry, that's average. He has I should have clicked through the game log a little quicker there. He's got just a single shot on goal in 4 of his last 5. He's scored on one of those shots, which is great. But I still think there's value to what he's doing. He's playing 5 more minutes a night than how much he played last year. I guess the question was that what happens when Ristolainen comes back to the lineup, and does that impact what Sanheim's fortunes are? And Ristolainen is still like, we have no news, right? There's
Yeah, I
nothing
don't know.
happening. There's just like he had I'm on game day tweets looking up Rasmus Ristolainen in the filter. He had a setback in his recovery, October 24th. And on November 3rd, he was moved. It was a paper transaction to LTIR. And that's it. I don't think they've even said what happened to him, but he was closing in on a return as of October 20th. It's weird.
Oh, I don't know. But anyways, he's Rasmus Ristolainen. Like I know, like some people
Yeah.
think like
No,
Jeremy brought it up.
sorry.
Like I'm not that concerned, but yeah,
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. I just like until like, sorry, I was just putting that as like, that's the next signpost for like
right.
whether Sanheim might not be. I agree with you, Elon. Like he's not a 70-point guy, but he could be a 50-point guy for as long as this deployment keeps up. And the next time I'll wonder if this deployment keeps up is when Ristolainen re-enters the lineup.
Yeah. Okay. So Brian, next up, I wanted to go to some injuries that are more like short term, nothing too serious like the ones from before. I want to start in Anaheim, where Trevor Zegras is like, I don't know, he's like day to day. They're saying the latest tweet I see here from Derek Lee. He has a lower body issue that's been bugging him for a while, so he just needs to get some rest. Honestly, if you have Trevor Zegras in your league, like you're not disappointed by this because he's been so bad, and you're probably like being like, dude, like take the time you need, get better and come back and be the Trevor Zegras that I drafted, because he had 65 points last year, and this year we're at 2 points in 12 games. Like I've mentioned Huberdeau, we've mentioned Gaudreau. Like this is worse than both of those guys. And I still actually have more faith in Zegras than the other two. So tell me if I need to change my opinion here. I do like the 2.5 shots per game. I'm really hoping that this thing that's been bothering him like explains a lot of it, right? And he'll just come back fully healed and ready to take off.
Yeah. And that's sort of the line. I mean, we were saying it about Troy Terry when he had slow started too. And Terry, by the way, has been a lot of by the ways tonight. Like just like if you haven't noticed, I mean, this actually reflects more of me. Like maybe you all already know, so you can also let us know in the feedback if you want. But Troy Terry has had that 4 point night, right? A hat trick against Arizona. Has pointed in 2 of his 3 games since then. So he seems like back enough, right? But Zegras he's out, so he can't be back. But yeah, no, points have been very far between because, as you mentioned, Elon, just the 2 in 12 games, including a single shot in 4 of his last 5. So as a Zegras manager who believes in Zegras, I am perfectly fine that he's taking a little bit of a vacation and getting right. His underlying numbers didn't seem to suggest that anything was like really wrong. The biggest flag was that Anaheim was shooting just 2.5% while Zegras was on the ice, which is just atrocious. And on the power play, it was a similar story. They were shooting less than 7%, which is also atrocious for having the man advantage. So a lot of bad variance for Zegras, like team-wide variance without bad team-wide variance without necessarily bad individual numbers. So when you said like, I hope he's getting right or healed, I couldn't really see it. But maybe I'm going to hope along with you that whenever he's back, he's feeling better. Are we going to talk about Leo Karlsson tonight while we're on Anaheim?
Literally my next bullet point. Leo Karlsson had a
Yeah.
hat trick in his last game. He's in today versus San Jose. I see it's already 1-0 for Anaheim. Vetrano from Labushkin and Strome. Hey, I was like, Ryan Strome was right on my border of like, he has such a good schedule next week, but it's like, he is not doing anything. I got to hold Ryan Strome for Anaheim as the best schedule of the week. If you listened to Matchup Maximizer yesterday, I said you got to get your Anaheim guys to get that Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. I said Strome was like borderline. Hold him for next week and then reassess.
Now that
And
he has
also
an
hold.
assist.
Yeah, now that he has an assist. I mean, yeah, I know he's not great, but that line with Vetrano and obviously McTavish it's a good line. But yeah, Leo Karlsson, look, like he got a hat trick. He like this news came out that he was going to be benched sometimes. I think he's only been benched like once
I'm
or
feeling very
twice, like since.
betrayed. This is why I was asking because he's barely been. I don't. He's played now 7 consecutive games, and I dropped him ahead of the 3rd game that he was going to play. And like to be fair, he played 1 game. He played 13 and a half minutes, so maybe that was like his half night off or something. I'm not sure, but like I feel like I was lied to. I made
Well, Shams
choices
is
based
saying
on
that Shams is saying sorry. Well, Shams is saying
Karlsson
that
is
like
going to play
Zegras
more.
being hurt is
Yeah.
leading to Karlsson playing more. So maybe the plan had to
Okay,
change.
but before Zegras was hurt, Karlsson played 5 straight games. He was supposed to play 2 of every 3. Jay Brew in the chat is saying I dropped Karlsson because he's not supposed to play, and he hasn't missed a game since. Ugh.
We
And
all
yeah,
got
I feel that too. Yeah, hoodwinked,
but
hoodwinked. I mean, but at the same time, there were several games where Karlsson was barely rosterable, right? Like in his last 5 games, he basically had a goal and nothing else before the hat trick against Philadelphia. So I wasn't sad until that moment to have let him go.
yes, we'll see how much sadder he makes you today in this game against San Jose, because we've seen some teams drop a lot of goals on the Sharks. Can I just mention, by the way, just going back to Columbus really quickly, Fantilli scored a goal. Just wanted to say it because I have
Okay,
him. I was
you
excited to
said
see
it.
it.
Good job.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I wanted to give a quick update on Alex Killorn. Actually, that was another player I just wanted to talk about because I don't think we talked too much about. We said he was coming back in 3 games going into today. Well, he had no points in his first 2 games. He had 2 assists in the win against Philly a couple days ago. Well, no, sorry, it was the loss against Philly 6-3, but Killorn did get 2 assists in that game. Killorn has been like not on a great line at even strength until, oh, wait, sorry. Let me just start that whole thing over again. One last player on Anaheim I just wanted to mention quickly. Alex Killorn is getting really good deployment right now with the Zegras injury. He's playing it today, at least on the top line with Terry and Leo Carlsson. And then he was also playing top power play, 2 assists in his last game, lost to Philly. So we'll see if Killorn can keep it up. I'm not like, Brian, don't try to like say now like I'm big pushing Alex Killorn. Just wanted to mention his deployment. But yeah, I personally like I'm not a big fan. I think I would take, is it Ryan Strome versus Alex Killorn, Brian, just for next week's 4 games. Do you take the top line power play guy, or do you take the guy who's been getting more points so far this season? Where do you go?
I think I'd take Killorn just
Yeah.
because I think he's benefiting from Zegras being out, right? Like he had 2 assists against Philly. And I think like now that he's playing with Troy Terry, that I would be interested in him more so than Ryan Strome, although Ryan Strome, can luck into points as good as anyone.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. I know you haven't been a fan of Strome for a while. That was the whole thing, like on the Rangers, where it was like everyone's being like he's so good now, and then you and a lot of people on Twitter were just like, oh, it's because he's playing with Panarin. Playing with Panarin is very good. Panarin's having an incredible season. Okay, Brian. Next injury. Chandler Stevenson hurt. He missed both of his games this week. I don't really think we have an update on if he'll be back next week or not. Vegas plays 4 times. In Stevenson's absence, so obviously Mark Stone has had to find 2 new line mates, and he's been saddled. Maybe that's not nice, but he's been playing with William Carrier and Michael Amadio. So not the best pair for Mark Stone.
That's a saddling.
That's a saddling right there. Well, it hasn't hurt him. He has 7 points in his last 5 games, assists in each of his last couple. So, I guess there was that big 4-point game against Colorado. That's shouldered a lot of that. But yeah, Mark Stone's a good player, so I'm sure he'll be fine. But I'm sure he'll be excited to get Stevenson back. I'm not sure exactly when that'll be. Of course, the main name I've got to bring up on Vegas is William Karlsson, and I think I brought him up a few weeks ago, and I think we both kind of agreed that it's great hot streak. He's not going to keep it up. He's kept it up. We're up to like 16 points in his last 12 games for William Karlsson. He's scored 5 goals in his last 5 games. He's only taking like 1 or 2 shots a game. Like every single shot he takes goes in. This guy has a magic stick. I know obviously what that means is that it won't continue, but Brian, I'll let you drop the hammer here.
I thought you were going to do like a 50 Cent impression along with that when you stopped for a second. Yeah, William Karlsson, I'm trying to think of like a 50 cents on the dollar kind of like value reference.
Why 50 cents? Sorry.
Because you don't remember the track Magic Stick? I got the magic stick.
Oh, I know that one. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Lil Kim.
I'm not with it.
I mean, neither am I, but were you ever is the question.
Yeah.
I was not with it 20 to 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, William Karlsson. Yeah. No, it's crazy. 98-point pace. And yes, I admit we were writing him off. And I still don't think we were wrong. He's scoring on 1/3 of his 5-on-5 shots. He's scoring on 1/3 of all his shots. Karlsson just has 1 power play goal. So 7 of these goals have come. Well, one of them came short-handed. But yeah, like Karlsson's just going off at 5-on-5. He's also getting in on like every single goal that's scored while he's on the ice at 5-on-5 too, with a 93% points participation rate. I'll put that in plain numbers. Like he has 14 5-on-5 points. He's been on the ice for 15 5-on-5 goals. All right. So that's not really going to hold. And also just in plain numbers, sometimes in plain number, I should have started this with plain numbers instead of percentages. 6 goals on 18 shots at 5-on-5 too. So great numbers for William Karlsson, and ride it for sure. I mean, we saw him ride it for an entire season in Vegas's inaugural year. Can he do it again? I don't know, but I would hold on. Like, obviously it's silly advice, but I would also see if you can try and find a way to sell high, because this shouldn't keep up. Not to say it won't, but it definitely shouldn't, because Karlsson has proved me wrong on that front before.
I'll bet you if you want, you can get like a Johnny Gaudreau for William Karlsson. Like, do you want to? It's a whole other question, because I'm very concerned about Gaudreau, but like, I'll bet you could pull that off. So up to you to decide.
Would you?
Probably. I don't know. It makes me so nervous, these kinds of things. I don't really make sure. Like, I know, like, I'm a fantasy hockey podcaster, but I don't really do the sell high. Like, I never have, and I've had success in the past. I generally like to just enjoy high, if that's a saying. Like I just like keep my guy while they're doing well, and then when they fall off, I go find the next guy in free agency. That's generally how I've played, as opposed to like whenever I have a guy on a hot streak, like trying to sell. But obviously, I've had regrets in terms of, man, imagine what I could have gotten for that. But if someone came to me though, if I have William Karlsson and then Johnny Gaudreau drops on my lap, like it would be hard to say no, but it also would be hard to say yes because Gaudreau's like on the third line today and doesn't even take shots. So
I
but
would
yeah.
definitely do it. And I would also like if I had William Karlsson, yeah, I'd be sending out trade offers. I would send him out for Trevor Zegras too. Maybe I'd even send one out for Sam Bennett.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of
You,
targets out there.
I think you'd get a deal.
Jordan
Yeah, I think that
Kyrou.
is. Oh, I would definitely take Kyrou
I'm just
over.
going on like I'm going based on the guys we've talked about tonight.
Right, sure. Okay, well, let me throw you another guy on the same team. What's going on with Jonathan Marchessault? I will just say right away, I would take Marchessault over William Karlsson. So definitely, if you have Karlsson, go send that trade offer. But I'm also really frustrated because Marchessault's playing on the line with Jack Eichel, and Eichel's going off, having an insane season. Like he's on the top power play. Like I don't understand why Jonathan Marchessault is not getting in on anything. He's also only taken 3 shots in his last 4 games. Before that, he was like 6-5-3. Like every game, what happened? Like, is he hurt? Does he need to take a Trevor Zegras vacation?
It's a good question because yeah, his shot rates have dipped a little bit this season on the whole, and especially over the last few games. And like you said, Elon, he doesn't look terribly involved, and that his point participation both at 5-on-5 and on the power play reflects that. And I've been calling that out a lot, but usually it's in tandem of saying, well, like everything else looks normal except for the point participation, which is low or high or whatever. But I guess I'm a little concerned. Like I'm going to be watching those shot counts. I think the points participation explains why Marchessault has only 3 assists through 15 games. Like 6 of his 9 points have been goals that he's scored himself. Right. Ultimately, I'm not that worried about Marchessault. And yeah, I would trade William Karlsson for John. I mean, I trade William Karlsson for a lot of guys. Okay, I don't think like it's sticking my neck out to say that I would trade him for Marchessault. But I would definitely like 3 shots over his last 4 games total. That's weird. That's weird. That's not what we expect to see. And he's actually been playing less. Played less than 15 minutes against San Jose on Friday night, and also played in the 15-minute area twice earlier this month against Colorado and Winnipeg. So, Elon, you might be onto something. There might be something nagging at Jonathan Marchessault that we want to keep an eye on.
Yeah, it just all of a sudden such a weird cliff that he's seems to have fallen off. Okay, Brian, this has been really fun. I still have a few more injuries to get to. Then we'll get to all the hot streaks and cold streaks, but that's all going to have to wait for part 2. But guess what? It's like, just kidding. No one has to wait because you're going to be able to listen to it right now. You already have it downloaded if you're subscribed to Keeping Karlsson. If you're not subscribed to Keeping Karlsson, do us a favor. Subscribe to Keeping Karlsson. Okay. So we're going to wrap this up here, and you can just go get part 2, where, like I said, we've got a lot more little injuries, and you know how it is. Like I say injuries, but then I'm going to talk about other players on the team. You know the shtick by now, and then we're going to go to some like hot streaks and cold streaks that we haven't already gotten to. So I have a big list here. So Brian, we're going to have to just sort of really buckle down and get through this. And so far, no one in the chat has told me that someone was not interesting. That was my request at the beginning to let me know, so I know how to pare this down for future episodes. But haven't said anything yet. So I guess that just means that every single player I think of I'm right. And it's just the NHL is a very fascinating place. There's too many teams. There's 32 teams. Of course, there's going to be a lot of players to talk about in a week. Anyway, we'll be back soon. Bye. Brian's shaking his head at me.
Wow.
By the way, Brian, the reason why I wouldn't want to trade or I'd consider not trading a William Karlsson for Johnny Gaudreau is like I'm considering dropping Johnny Gaudreau right now. So now if I trade for him, now I'm going to feel like, well, I mean, if I just traded my hot streak guy for him, I'm not just going to drop him now for after his next bad games. Now I'm going to be stuck with this guy. It's like, so that would be the frustrating thing for me, trading for someone who's super cold. But maybe Gaudreau turns it around. Anyways, that's my opinion there. See ya. It is 8:46, Sunday, November 12th. If you have Marc-Andre Fleury on your fantasy team, you have likely had him destroy your week as he led in 8 goals against the Dallas Stars. But regardless, it's a new week and a new day, and Brian and I will be here to finish up this mega show. Brian, so glad to be back here with you. Like I said, I have a few more injuries to get to, and then we got a whole bunch of really interesting hot and cold streaks. How are you faring an hour into this thing?
So good. What am I supposed to say? Like, I feel like I always just want to say, well, let's just get to it, but I don't think I could say that every time.
That's
I
okay.
need,
No one remembers.
okay, let's
People
get
listen to a lot
to
of
it.
podcasts.
I'm
Okay.
ready. What are we waiting for?
I shouldn't have even asked you. Who cares
No,
how
it's
Brian's doing?
weird. No one cares.
No one cares. They just want to know what Brian thinks about the Rangers goalie situation, which is what I've got next year. So, Ilya just no, Ilya, get out of here. So, Igor Shestyorkin is hurt. We don't really know when he's going to come back. Let me do my quick little hotkey here and see. Oh, I spelled Shestyorkin wrong. Oh, see, it's like tough though. The problem with the hotkey is like if you mess it up, then it's not going to work. But let me just start this over thing. Okay. Oh, situation.
Do you want to start like the whole episode over?
No, because I did a whole voice already. I'll just
Okay.
go. Igor Shestyorkin is hurt. We don't really know what's going to be going on with him. Latest I'm seeing here on game day tweets, he's like day to day. But that was already like a few days ago. That was like 4 days ago. We still haven't really heard too much about when Shestyorkin is going to come back. In the meantime, the Rangers are playing right now against Columbus, and they are losing 3-2. I mentioned Adam Fantilli goal. Jonathan Quick is back in the net though, so I guess he's going to take over, and Demang will be the backup. And it's not a great situation for the Rangers, though Jonathan Quick has been better than I expected. So, got to give him some credit there. The main guy, though, I have to bring up, if he's still available to you, Eric Gustafsson is like, pause the pod and add him, right? Like it's still going to be a while for Adam Fox. Another assist today for Gustafsson. He just like is doing he's doing even well at even strength. So I think like not only did he get the power play spot, but I think maybe we didn't even emphasize enough how valuable just his extra ice time is that he's been getting. So I don't know, like 6 points in his last 4 games now. And yeah, like if I'm looking at the game log here, we saw like 20 minutes of ice time in the last game, 18 minutes the game before. And this is a guy who was closer to like, 17, even 15 for a couple games at the start of the year. So yeah, while Adam Fox is out, I'm really interested in Eric Gustafsson. I wish I would have grabbed him.
Me too. How many times, is this the third time that Gustafsson has done this in his
Yeah.
career
He just did it last year
in Washington?
in Washington. He did it in Chicago, I think, when Duncan Keith got
Yeah.
injured. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that he's made a career out of doing this and it's weird and fun. I think it's a lot more fun if you have him on your roster. But yes, pause the pod, go add him. I guess like it really like I don't know. I'm trying to think if I were him, if I would not sign if I just sign 1 year contracts every year and only sign them when a team's power play quarterback goes down. Although maybe they won't have cap space. And you probably also want a guaranteed salary. Okay. That's why I'm not Eric Gustafsson's agent. But I just want the best for him, right? Elon, I also thought you were maybe going to mention Alexis Lafreniere,
Oh,
who's
I was. Yeah.
oh,
Go for
okay,
it.
great, yeah. Like when you said pause the pod, and like it's not quite a pause the pod moment, but Lafreniere is don't look now, but on a 59-point pace with 6 goals and 4 assists for 10 points through 14 games. That includes a goal tonight against Columbus on the only shot he's taken, but that extends Lafreniere's point streak to 4 games. He had a 3-game point streak earlier this season, 3 goals. It actually took Lafreniere until game number 11 for him to register his first assist of the season, which to me is like, hey, he might be able to get in on a couple more points than he has so far. Power play deployment still not there, like still on the second unit, but playing with Panarin tonight, also playing with Trocheck. And I wonder if this is the time to go ahead and like Elon, you were talking about Kurashev and who's the other Foligno.
Yeah.
I feel like I would take Lafreniere over either
Sure.
of them, even though they're exposed to Bedard, but Lafreniere is exposed to Panarin and should I still kind of expect that Lafreniere is going to be good. It's his age 22 season. We know he's disappointed in the 3 seasons he's played to date, but hey, season number 4, game number 230 tonight. He's in that breakout territory if it's going to happen.
Yeah, I guess Jay Brew is bringing up in the chat a very important point, which is the Rangers play only one time next week, and it's on Saturday. So it's like when we said pause the pod and rush for Gustafsson, like maybe you could actually play chicken with your league mates and wait until like Thursday or Friday.
I guess if he's still available at this point, then you probably could wait.
Yeah,
But
that is
I don't
tricky.
know. But you also might have gotten lucky. Like I would forfeit 1 or 2 GP just to make sure I have Gustafsson for the next like several weeks.
Yeah, it's tough. Of Lafreniere, I think I would wait on, but maybe Brian, you're right that like I'd be messing up, but I don't think I would grab Lafreniere to like have him sit because
No, I
you're probably
agree.
not going to fit him in on Saturday either. So you're
Yeah.
giving up like a whole week to that roster spot. But he's good. You know who else is really good, by the way? I'll bring up Vincent Trocheck has really benefited from Philip Hedl being out of the lineup. Trocheck's gotten back with Lafreniere, 7 points in his last 4 games now, including a couple multi-point games recently. So yeah, he wasn't looking that great to start the year on the third line. But yeah, Trocheck is feasting right now. So I'm sure that Trocheck managers are just hoping Hedl, takes his time, or maybe the Rangers will just go back to Hedl being the third line center like he was last year. Like, clearly it's clicking right now with Trocheck and Panarin and Lafreniere.
Yeah, Trocheck doing his thing again, which is basically confounding us and also having like significantly varied deployment in the year. Do you know like the last 3 seasons, he's finished in a different, like I'll call them buckets of 10. Like in 1 year, last year season was a 60 to 70 point player. I know, okay. There's a better way to say what I'm trying to say, but basically last year he's in the 60s, the year before he was in the 50s, the year before he was in the 70s, and like not close, like a 10 point difference at least between his point paces in each of those years. Just a frustrating guy to project, and he changes teams all the time. Vincent Trocheck, he's one of those guys that when we get asked questions about him, I'm like, oh, I'm never gonna figure this one out. Like it's just one of those guys.
Just
So
right, just right saying like
cool.
I like him while he's with Panarin and just kind of like leave it at that.
I
Dot dot
like him
dot.
while he's scoring and in good deployment, which
Yeah.
sometimes can last entire seasons and sometimes can last like mere moments.
Mm-hmm. So Markstrom is day to day on Detroit. No. Yeah. So Jacob Markstrom is day to day over on Calgary, which led to Dustin Wolf getting called up and having his first start, Brian, against your Ottawa Senators, and it didn't go that well. I guess the Senators had a good Corpusalo outplayed him. So 1 game for the season, an 895 save percentage for Dustin Wolf. Welcome back to the NHL. He had a much better game last season in his first ever career game. Anyways, Markstrom might be back soon, so this is probably just like a short-term thing. But I still like Dustin Wolf. I think he's really good. So stream him
Definitely.
in when he plays, but
Yeah.
who knows like how long that'll be. Yeah.
He's a really interesting. Do you know he's a seventh rounder? Like,
Yeah,
like,
right. Yeah.
yeah. And
Goalies.
I
Who
can't
knows?
remember how, like, this is like not that, I guess 4 years ago now, 2019, he was drafted. I guess I haven't totally followed. I don't know if you can fill me in how his trajectory changed so much from being a seventh round pick to being like a blue chip goalie prospect. But in the AHL, Dustin Wolf has been performing 924 in 47 games his first year as a pro, followed up by 932 in 55 games this year, 924 in 6 AHL games. So I mean, he seems to be doing all he can do down in the minors, and it would be great to see him get some NHL reps. I'm not sure it's going to happen this year. Like, why bother, right? Like the Flames are, I think, a few years from really figuring out how to turn this ship around. So I'd rather save his contracts in time for then. But fun time for Dustin Wolf. And I bring this up because I hadn't fully realized just how great he'd been in the AHL.
Yeah, anytime I see lists of like top prospect goalies, he's always up there. If I were to guess, and I'm not a big prospect guy, he's only 6 feet tall. So probably that's why he fell in the draft, even though he had good numbers in like the WHL before he's had good. You look at his season log since he was a kid, and he's always been great, above like 920 something every single season. The WHL, now in the AHL. So I'm guessing he just had to prove that he could be good, even
Yeah.
though he's not the tallest guy.
166 pounds is what he's listed at. I'm looking at Hockey DB.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there are any lighter goalies.
I don't know. Oh, that good question for the listener. So Brian, I wanted to bring up since we're on Calgary here, their lines have been really just crazy. Like, and it'll change again. I know. Like, but just like FYI, so Kadri, Sharangovich, and Connor Zary, and then Hubert Doe with Lindholm and Manjapani. Then look at this top power play: Kadri, Lindholm, Adam Ruzichka, and Connor Zary, and Rasmus Anderson. So leaving Hubert Doe on the second power play. I get. So what do you do here? But we had a question from Trev being like, what's the interest level in Connor Zary, right? Because he's playing with Kadri, he's on the top power play. He's a much higher pedigree guy than Dustin Wolf was when he was drafted. He was a first round pick. But I know you always like to point out that a 24th overall pick, like not the same, obviously. I mean, obvious, right? Like not the same as a top 10 pick. But I know Connor Zary is someone that people have liked for a while. He's played 5 games now for the Flames. He had points in the the first four, couldn't get anything in this. I keep bringing up this game where Corpusalo, just no one could beat him, including Connor Zary. But, and I might be pronouncing his name wrong, actually, it might be Zary. I apologize if I am. I'll learn it by sometime soon, I'm sure, if he keeps producing. But Brian, are we interested in this guy while he's getting this? I guess I'll call it top line. I'm definitely going to call the line with Kadri top line and not the line. Well, I don't know because Lindholm is good, but whatever. He's getting good even strength deployment and he's on the top power play.
Yeah, and I think I am interested in Connor Zary. Like he starts his career with a 4-game point streak before, running into the wall that is Eunice Corpusalo. But last season in the HL, Zary, as you said, a former first round pick back in 2020, 24th overall. So like it's still worth something. It's not automatic, but it's worth something. 58 points, in 72 games with Calgary of the AHL, the Wranglers. This season started the season with 10 points in 6 games in the AHL. So yeah, deserved a call up. And he's getting good deployment. And honestly, I watched a bit of the game on Friday night, the Toronto Calgary game. And I mean, no flame. Everyone actually looked pretty bad. Like there wasn't a lot to love, but Zary I think he was in on a goal early on. And there's just, you got like this self-assured sort of feeling, like ready to be there. His shot rates aren't fantastic. So if you're looking for somebody who's like going to help you any night, even if they don't get a point, Zary might not be the best choice for you. But yeah, his deployment's interesting. And if and when Calgary has a good schedule for you to fit someone in, I would stream in Connor Zary.
Okay. So we're still doing some injuries here. Alex Tuck has been hurt on Buffalo. Again, like these are the list of injuries that I don't think these are super long term. So who knows? Maybe Tuck will be back soon. He said in all likelihood, like he was like, it was announced that he won't play tonight, for yesterday. So that's the kind of thing where, it could be maybe the next game he will be in. In the meantime, obviously that meant another shakeup of the Buffalo Lions. Their latest has been Thompson, Skinner, and JJ Paterka. He was on the top line, at least to start the game. I'm seeing also there was some time with Paterka, Greenway, and Thompson. So I'm not even going to dig any further here. It looks like the lines were actually going crazy in this game. The one guy I will bring up right now, Brian, is Dylan Cousins is super cold. So add him to the list with your Gaudreaus and your Zegras, Kyrie, whatever, like players who were drafted like pretty high and are disappointing it. But unlike those other ones, like Cousins actually started like really strong. He was point per game up until around the end of October. And since then, and he missed a couple of games with injury. And I don't know if that's contributed because he's pointless now in 5 games. And it's like no fun for people who probably are now wishing they sold high, right? So are you seeing underlyings to indicate that Cousins will be fine, or would you be nervous?
I still think he's okay. I know we were having some concern like earlier in the season just because he didn't get off to the start that we were expecting. Dylan Cousins, I should say his name a little more often. But yeah, so far struggling, like not barely a half point per game, only 2 power play points. And we talked earlier in the season about how that really struggling Buffalo power play was hurting. And also, I think we should point out that Cousins before taking a couple games off had just 4 shots over the 5 games going into that, and he's got 6 shots in his 2 games since returning. So that to me is a promising sign. And Elon, like even if I look at Dylan Cousins' underlying numbers, I don't really like I don't know. I just get the sense that he was playing hurt for a little while before actually taking some time off. At least that's what I'm hoping, because if I am going fully believing the underlying numbers that they do demonstrate him at his top capacity, Cousins doesn't look that great this year. We had a question in the chat earlier tonight if we would trade, what was it? Was it Gaudreau for Cousins? And you and I both said that we would do Cousins, like we would prefer Cousins in that deal, and I still stand by it. But it's not like his struggles are so different from Johnny Gaudreau's this year. Their shot rates, like both of them have lower shot rates. Both of them just seem to be struggling. Both have low points participation, which should regress. But I think I will still lean to Dylan Cousins, although I would rather see him like steadily on the top power play unit instead of being replaced by, JJ Paterka.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, for sure. But I mean, I'd also prefer to see Gaudreau on the third line. So they both have their little red flags. At least Cousins is only 22 years old. You think maybe he still has some like room to grow. So maybe, he has a good chance of improving throughout the season. maybe here's a fun comparison, Brian. We talked about Seth Jarvis, similar age, Jarvis versus Cousins. Do you think that's like pretty close, or do you think it's clearly one or the other?
Huh. It's really it's always weird when a guy plays differently all of a sudden, then takes a couple games off and then comes back. And I feel like it's almost like a reset and we need to wait and see. Although Jarvis, like his shooting has basically been what Cousins was doing going into his injury. So I feel like it can't yeah, I feel like that makes me want to lean Cousins, even though Jarvis seems to have the safer, better deployment. But yeah, give me Cousins. I think I believe a little bit more in like his raw talent and readiness.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so Brian, we still have all the hot streaks and cold streaks, but first, of course, we'll have to do the big news out of Edmonton. I will save this for like part 2 of episode 2. So we'll get to the Oilers when we come back in just a second. And keeping Karlsson. Brian, we are back. A lot of news out of Edmonton recently. First of all, the big waiving of Jack Campbell. He got sent to the minors. Calvin Pickard got called up, and so far Pickard hasn't played. But hey, Stuart Skinner maybe has some new confidence now, knowing that he's for sure the guy. He had a very good game against Seattle. Edmonton finally got a win. He only had 18 shots against, which maybe is actually a good thing, like about the team overall, that they were like, being able to shut it down a little bit. But anyways, he was up for it. Like only 1 goal against on those 18 shots in the 4-1 win. Are we at a point now where like I mean, you have to just say Skinner is more interesting, right? Even though he's been terrible, I'd still at least take the terrible guy that's now the for sure starter versus the terrible guy that also was like 50-50. So I think you got to grab Skinner if you can, right? Even though it's scary.
Yeah, I do. And I've been saying this for a few weeks too, right? That even though they've both been bad, Skinner has been a little less bad. And I also think that he's like we've seen a recent track record of him doing well. And especially with Campbell being sent down, that to me is a pretty good indication that Skinner is the guy they want to roll with. I mean, Pickard was playing well in the AHL this season, 939 over 4 starts. And last season had a 912. The year before that had a 918. But we've seen Pickard have looks in the NHL. He's actually played 116 NHL games. He's 31 years old and has a career 903 save percentage. So I don't know if he'll get another shot. He'll need Skinner to really struggle to get it. And for anyone like thinking, hey, yeah, Jack Campbell, the Oilers, he didn't get claimed, so they hope he'll find his game in the AHL. If you haven't been keeping up, he's given up 8 goals over 2 games in the AHL for Bakersfield.
Oh, no.
So far. He has stopped 38 of 46 shots, good for an 826 save percentage, which is like 50 save points lower than his NHL save percentage, which was already pretty low. Yikes.
Yeah.
Wish the best though.
I mean, sure, but the Oilers really blew it with that contract signing. And that's a shame. But and I'm laughing because I'm a bad person. By the way, big game for Zach Hyman there. Got the hat trick. The lines were wild, but I guess there's no need to read too much into the lines because we have a new coach now. Jay Woodcroft is gone. I haven't learned yet the name of the new coach.
That seems weird.
Does that seem they weird like fired him after a win.
No, not after a win, but just like I don't. He did. Honestly, I feel like Woodcroft and Stuart Skinner are like very closely linked, like in their trajectory. Like they both came in, did something for the Oilers that no one had done for them for a really long time. Were like unheralded and like sort of like the last option available. And then they struggled a bit, and now they're they're maligned. And I guess it's easier to let a coach go than a player go. I don't know. It seemed reactionary. And if I were an NHL team looking for a coach, like, say if I were Ottawa or whatever, I would be looking pretty closely at Woodcroft as a coaching candidate. I mean, I know also that there were a lot of really valid complaints about what the Oilers were doing with their personnel, like how Woodcroft was coaching and choices he was making. I'm not sure how much of it was him and how much of it was special teams. I try and keep up with our very educated Oilers fans on the Discord, and I haven't been able to check in on their reactions yet to the Woodcroft firing. By the way, new coach is Chris Knobloch. Don't know if he's related to Chuck.
Yeah, name sounds familiar. Yeah, former baseball player.
Yeah, Minnesota Twin.
Okay, so yeah, we'll see what Edmonton does. The thing is with the Edmonton lines, I'm starting to really be numb to it. Like, like normally when I see a team's lines, like, oh, that's a new interesting spot. But it's like people like, well, what am I gonna be like? Oh, Warren Fogle is on playing with McDavid. Oh, Ryan McLeod is playing with Draisaitl. Like, who cares? We know who's good on Edmonton, and I feel like this team is immune to like no other players do anything ever. Like we got burned too many times by Puliarvi and Yamamoto. So I feel like I don't even care what the lines are gonna be. Like I like Hyman, Nugent Hopkins, Kane, Draisaitl, and McDavid. Not in that order, probably in the reverse order. Well, no, I like Hyman. Anyway, whatever. Those are the 5 good ones. Oh, and Bouchard. That's it. Maybe Darnold Nurse. I don't know. That's the
Yeah.
list.
I mean, it also goes back to, sorry, the coach firing goes back to, I remember this was probably a decade ago at least already, but someone made a chart showing, remember I was talking about PDO last week and how Colorado's was low and Edmonton's was low, and coaches get hired, or sorry, get fired and renewed based on like crazy PDO benders. And I just think that's what Woodcroft was wearing here. And we've been talking about how the Oilers are sort of all struggling together. But I think you sort of just really got to I mean, even in good times, there's only like there aren't so many Oilers to roster. But I guess maybe we should just at least mention like Evander Kane holding his own, 10 points in 13 games so far in this season. We were pretty concerned because he has still lost that top power play time. And I don't know that that's going to change with a new coach, but his but Kane's 5-on-5 scoring has been really strong this year. And I'm just trying to it looks pretty sustainable to me too. He's only shooting 3.5% at 5-on-5 too. So he could be picking up a few more goals himself, which is pretty impressive. That Kane is pacing for 63 points without any substantial power play time or production. So good for him.
All right, so that's our Oilers talk, Brian. Now I've got my list of hot and cold streaks to end the show. We don't have like so much time, so I think let's make this a classic game of sustainable or fleeting. So we won't have time to do big deep dives. I'm going to tell you a guy on a hot streak or a cold streak, and you let me know if you think that's like for real or if you think it's like going to evaporate at any time. And we'll see how this goes. A fun one to start. Love to see it. Erik Karlsson is back, baby. Forget you know what I said before when I said I was like low on him? That was an anti-jinx and it worked. So
well.
You're welcome. You're welcome to everyone who has Erik Karlsson. 9 points in his last 5 games, capped off by this 2 goals against Buffalo in the 4-0 win. And we're up to now 13 points in 13 games. Point per game. Erik Karlsson didn't doubt you for a second. Sustainable or fleeting? And there's only one right answer here.
Sustainable. Yeah, like not entirely, right? But things are going well. And it's nice, honestly, to see as part of these points, to see Karlsson pick up 4 power play points out of the 9 that he's picked up in his last 5 games. So yeah, making up for lost time, including some clicking on the power play. Those are, by the way, Karlsson's only 4 power play points of the season. It took him to gain to the 10th game of the season, excuse me, for him to actually pick up a power play point. So now that he's there, the seal is broken. I think we're good, Elon. I don't think you need to worry.
Yeah, there were a lot of quotes about Karlsson. He was a very optimistic guy back at the beginning of the season. He was like, yeah, it's a new situation. We got to learn. We got to play together on this. He was right. They needed some time. Now he had it. He was great. He's the best. Okay. Next up, Brian, over in San Jose, who they're playing right now. So I could actually tell you they're done 1 period. Anaheim's up 2-1. 2 goals from Frank Vatrano. So maybe another hat trick coming for Frank. That would be his 3rd of the year, which is pretty incredible. But I want to talk about the Sharks. Okay, the player I'm going to bring up is, well, first of all, there's Mackenzie Blackwood. He had 2 incredible games to help the Sharks actually win 2 games. He's led now like 2 goals on 14 shots, whatever. I'm assuming fleeting. Well, you tell me. So Mackenzie Blackwood, if he's available. Yeah, you don't grab him, right? He's very scary.
Yeah, I remember. Was it Shams? Shams was asking. We have a little like short shifts like host group chat, and Shams was like, should I take a chance on Blackwood? And I sent a GIF and like, no, like absolutely not. And then Blackwood had a great night. And like that'll happen like once every 4 or 5 times you try. I think so. You can roll the dice, but the odds are poor.
Okay. Also on the Sharks, though, their best player, and it's not close, Tomas Hertl, had a good start to the year. I remember we came on like the second show of the season, and I was like, look at this guy. Like the Sharks are terrible, but somehow Hertl has 5 points in 5 games. Well, he followed that up with a 5-game pointless streak. He got dropped, Brian, in my couple division. I decided to give him a shot. I actually woke up at 3 a.m. Last Monday to get his 4 games this week, and he rewarded me with a great week. We're up to 5 points in his last 5 games, 4 shots today against Anaheim. We're only a period in, 5 shots the game before. Hurdle, so how sustainable? Like, I don't think he's going to be point per game, but how far off? Like, what do you think? He's at two
I
hot
think,
streaks now and a cold streak. Which one is the more Tomas Hurdley person part?
yeah, I mean, well, look at who he's playing with tonight. Have you looked? Could you
Eklund, I
tell
know
me if
Eklund
you,
is there.
yeah, and Fabian Zetterlund.
Yeah,
So like Eklund could be good. Zetterlund could be like a second line player. It's still hard for me to really believe. And there's also still no one like you could do five forwards on the quarterback on the power play or Kalen Addison. But neither option seems good. Like it just seems like it's Hurdle versus the world. So like good for Hurdle for any gains he makes, and good for you for waking up at 3 a.m. I feel like we need to sell the t-shirt by now already with like a
that's a
cupful
that's
shirt
a
that
good
shows like
idea.
the phone, your phone screen with a 3 a.m. timer or 3 a.m. alarm like flipped on. Yeah.
Well, actually, to tell you my move, I actually used my computer because I wanted to make 2 ads. I shouldn't even like promote. Like, I wish I didn't have to do this, right? Like Yahoo
Ridiculous.
forces you to. But I wanted to make 2 ads last Monday morning, and with the phone, by the time you make the one ad, then you put in the next ad. And I was worried someone would snipe me. I wanted to get also Caden Gooley, who, by the way, we could mention him next. But I opened 2 tabs, one adding Hurdle and one adding Gooley. Then I went to sleep, and then I used my watch. So my phone wasn't involved at all. I used my watch to beep at 2:59. I woke up. I pressed submit on both of those tabs. As soon as the clock struck 3, they both went through. Went back to sleep. It was great.
So how did you know to wake up?
My
Where did the
watch.
alarm come? Your watch.
Yeah, I set an alarm on my watch.
Is that your regular wake up alarm? Like, is this different?
My regular wake up alarm is my daughter crying in the baby monitor.
Okay. All right. I have more questions, but I guess we won't get into them. Like
Okay.
just like how long, what, anyway,
I'll tell
I
you. I'll
need
tell
to
you anything you
know for
need.
this. Well, no, I just wanted to know, like, without your daughter crying, how would you wake up? Like, I wanted to the essence of the
I'll
3 a.m. wake up.
Okay, well, I have a Google Home in the bedroom. So if Dina and I were both going to wake up around the same time, then I guess I would just set the alarm, I say, hey, set an alarm for this time. But obviously, I'm not going to do that for this 3 a.m. thing and wake my wife up for this terrible reason. So yeah, my watch is generally really good. It just vibrates on my wrist. No one knows but me. It's nice.
That's amazing.
Okay. Uh,
I really want to see like a physiological chart or something, like something that really represents your like heart rate or something.
I guess I have it. My watch tracks that
Overnight.
stuff.
Yeah. I'd love to see those charts.
Okay, well, I'll try to find last Monday's data.
And I want to see like the data of like when you do get the guy you want and when you don't.
Well, I used to not a lot. Last year when I was in tier 1, I got it was so frustrating. But I would use my phone. It was someone who suggested to me to use the computer instead of the phone. It is a lot faster than tapping and go. With the computer, computers are better than phones, I think, for some things.
You see,
Brian,
now that dates you.
well, for some things. Brian, so we still have a lot of hot and cold streaks to get to. Let's take our final break, and then we'll just burn through as many as we can. So we'll be back soon. All right, we are back, Brian. And sure, I just mentioned him. So I guess I got to do a little brag. I did my brag about Erik Karlsson. So why not my new favorite defenseman on the Montreal Canadiens, Caden Gooley, who I grabbed for the 4 games. And I love the blocks. And he delivered, right? 4 blocks in each of his last couple games. He also had a goal and an assist versus Boston. He's actually playing right now. These 4 blocks against Vancouver. This game is still going. Still no points. So Gooley, though, overall, up to now, 6 points in 11 games. That's a 45-point pace, which is pretty sweet for a good peripheral defenseman. So is this 45-point pace for Caden Gooley sustainable or fleeting?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I really don't think the points are the thing, right? Like
But I'm
you're
saying, but
after.
if he is a 45-point guy, then I'm super stoked. So I just want to know how good is this guy? Is he a 45 point? I'm not asking for much. I'm not asking for more than that, but a 45-point pace, is that a reasonable expectation for this 21-year-old phenom
I
on
think
my
it's a little
couple team?
high. I think
Okay.
it's probably 35 to 40 points. And the number I'm going to use to back that up is the 13.5% on ice shooting that the Habs have with Gouli on the ice. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they'll keep that up. That'll regress somewhat, but still 35 to 40 points. If he can still, like, what's he averaging? 3 blocks a night, and a hit or two and a couple shots. That's a nice category filler there too. And then,
Mm-hmm.
35 times a year, you'll be like, hey, and he got a point too.
Yeah. And that game against Boston, overtime goal and an assist. That was a great night.
So
Uh,
34 times a year, you'll say, hey, he got a point.
yeah.
And
And then
one
one
time
time
you'll
his
say,
goal
wow,
scored.
he got points.
All right, next up, let's go to Seattle. Okay, there's a lot of fun players on hot streaks right now. I'm going to start with the hottest of the hot, Jaden Schwartz. He now has 12 points in his last 9 games. We're almost at a point per game for Jaden Schwartz. So 77-point pace overall. But let's just for the purposes of this, let's say like 65 plus. Is he a 65 plus rest of season, or is this going to fall back to the 46-point pace he had last year?
Yeah, 46 was too low. Like, I don't know. Jaden Schwartz, he's not quite Trocheck level frustrating, but he is someone that I've taken a lot of chances on over the years and not once been rewarded. So am I a little grumpy that he has 14 points in 15 games nowhere near my roster when he's so available, right? Like so freaking available. Yeah, I'm a little crusty about it. But I also like know that this isn't have fair to have expected 4 goals in his last 4 games. Those 4 goals have come on 8 shots, and that's one of the reasons that Jaden Schwartz is shooting 20% on the season in full. A lot of those are coming on the power play, though, so let's give Schwartz some credit. 5 power play goals plus 2 more power play assists for 7 power play points in 15 games. That he also isn't going to keep that up in Seattle, especially with their like even power play deployment. So I will go fleeting for Jaden Schwartz. Elon, I don't know that he should go like as far down as a 46-point pace, but I don't think he should be anywhere near 77 or the 70s at all. And honestly, even the 60s would be a win for Jaden Schwartz, even with this latest run. But it is nice to see those shot rates stay up as they have since he got to Seattle.
Mm-hmm. By the way, Seattle, great schedule next week after Anaheim, maybe the best, like Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday. I mentioned on my matchup maximizer yesterday that this next guy, because I said Jaden Schwartz is probably taken, so he wouldn't count. I named Ellie Tolvanen as my streamer of the week, and I streamed him in myself, Brian. Didn't even have to wake up at 3 a.m. to do it. Grabbed him Thursday afternoon. And yeah, he's on a streak of 5 points in his last 4 games, playing on a line with Gourde and Bjorkstrand, and also on one of those power plays, the one that got more time in the last game. I don't know how even it is, at least in this last game. Well, whatever, it's like one power play. But anyway, Tolvanen up to on the season 9 points in 15 games. It's a 50-point pace. So I don't know. I mean, hopefully he can continue that, but I don't even know how you answer sustainable or
Yeah.
fleeting for Tolvanen. What do you think? You like him, right?
I think Tolvanen's 5-on-5 production is actually sustainable. Like I think he can keep it up. Like the on ice shooting percentage is like a little high, but everything else looks pretty reasonable. And Tolvanen only has 3 power play points in 15 games with a 50% share of his team's power play time. So honestly, you regress each one, and you've got Tolvanen, who, like, by the way, this all amounts to a 49-point pace for the season. So maybe you could say if he's going to, sort of keep up what he's doing a little bit more than how he started with being pointless in, what was it, 6 of his first 8 games, that Tolvanen maybe could be a 55-point player. But I'm not tripping over myself. But in a nice schedule week, yeah, thanks for pointing him out.
And by the way, one more crack, and I have to ask you because you mentioned the split power play, and that was our reason to be like not super high on Vince Dunn, not thinking he could repeat his 65 points from last year. Bro now is pacing for higher, up to 13 points in 15 games for Dunn. He gets points every game, Brian. He doesn't stop. He's up to a 71-point pace, sustainable or fleeting on Vince Dunn.
Yeah. I don't want to get it wrong, but fleeting? Do you know,
Okay.
like, Vince Dunn has done like nothing at 5-on-5 this season. It's kind of crazy. like his like he has 3 points in 15 games at 5-on-5, which speaks to just how much Vince Dunn has been relying on like I know 3-on-3 or like 7 power play points, one short-handed point to get up to 13 points on the season. He's taken 21 shots in 15 games, which is nothing special at all. But I guess the other side of this coin is that Seattle's only scored on 4% of their shots with Dunn on the ice. They've only scored 6 times, and Dunn has 3 points on them. So maybe if Seattle scores more, which they should, Dunn will get more points too. But this power play production, like it's the same as Jaden Schwartz. Like it's kind of unsustainable. But I guess I'm closer at this moment to believing that Dunn could still hang out somewhere in the 60s than I was at the start of the season when I was pretty confident he'd be in the 50-55 point range.
Okay, next up, let's go to the Toronto Maple Leafs here. They have the opposite of Seattle. Not a great schedule next week. Wednesday, the opposite of Seattle. Not a great schedule. Friday, Sunday. Yep.
Oh, sorry. I just quickly. Oliver Bjorkstrand. He's up to 12 points in 15
Okay.
games.
Well,
Yeah.
okay, so say it in I don't know.
Oh, okay, that's it.
Sorry.
Okay.
Oh, should I? Okay, I'll cut that in somehow.
Okay. Well, how about before I'll just after Vince done?
Yeah.
How about okay. And Elon, before we leave Seattle, let's shout out another guy I've given a lot of chances to over the years and have been rewarded at times, unlike Jaden Schwartz, but not for a while. But Oliver Bjorkstrand up to 12 points, 6 goals, 6 assists in 15 games, only 32 shots. So it means he's scoring on almost 20% of the shots he takes. Also has a power play point basically every 3 games, which isn't going to sustain. It all adds up to about a 66-point pace. But just like everyone else in Seattle we've talked about, Elon, I'm just going to say maybe closer to 55 points than where he currently is. But a nice little run. A lot of cracking on runs. Nice time for them to have a good schedule week.
Yeah, patrons will be able to take a drink right now. But yeah, I have Bjorkstrand in my dynasty league, and like there's been times when Maddie and I have been like, "Oh, this contract, man, it's too high, and he's not that good." But so far this season, I'm not complaining with what I'm getting from Oliver Bjorkstrand. So yeah, not too bad. Okay, let's go to Toronto next, Brian. They're the opposite of Seattle. They only play 2 games, and they're late in the week, Friday, Sunday, at least 2 off day games. So could be worse. Could be the Rangers. But yeah, the Leafs have a lot of like peripheral guys that like haven't been that good all season, but now are starting to like heat up at a time when it's like now you have to decide whether to hold them or drop them or what are you going to do. I guess first I'll just mention William Nylander and his 22 points in 15 games, and the dude takes the subway to his games, which is incredible. I love it so much. So you don't have to answer because like, what are you even gonna do? I'm regretting, Brian. Let me tell me this. Like, I'm regretting not taking Nylander. Yeah, in like my I had in the couple I had like 14, 15, right, the last pick of the first round, and I took Tage Thompson and Ovechkin did score a couple goals last game. I like that, but I feel like I would have like been laughed at the time. But like if I could go back in time, I would maybe tell myself like, dude, just take William Nylander. He's so good.
Yeah, I'm trying to see who I took before William Nylander. I took Jake Gensel right after, actually. So I didn't have a crack at Nylander. If he was going to fall to me, I might have still taken him.
Well, who did you take with your first pick?
I took Kaprizov. Well, my first 2 picks were Kaprizov and Josi. So you're saying like, should I have taken Nylander ahead of either of those? Well, which would have been like a 28 picks earlier than when he went.
Well, maybe. I mean, I'm just saying Kaprizov is definitely not as good as Nylander so far this year. Nylander is incredible. He has 10 goals and 22 points in 15 games.
Nylander is doing incredible things, and like I'm looking at how he's doing it at 5-on-5. His numbers look pretty sustainable. Like he's really good, right? Like he's elite. He really is, and doesn't get a lot of credit for all that he does. And I know this wasn't the guy you meant to talk about, Elon, but honestly, at 5-on-5 and on the power play, Nylander is of course crushing it, but in a way that is like honestly largely sustainable. I don't think 100-point pace for Nylander is out of the question this season. So if anyone is trying to like sell high on him, then go ahead, go and buy high.
Yeah, no, he's great. He's going to make a lot of money next year. But okay, no, the three Leafs I wanted to ask you about, the guys that aren't the big four. So Tyler Bertuzzi, who's playing with Nylander and Tavares, was doing nothing forever, but he did have 2 assists in that game against Vancouver, and he scored a goal against Ottawa early in the week. So a pretty decent week for Tyler Bertuzzi overall. Then you've got Max Domi, who's not even on a line with anyone that good, but somehow he's on a 4-game point streak, getting an assist every single game. Popped 2 assists against Vancouver. And then we also have Nick Robertson, who was called up, and he's a prospect that I know a lot of people are excited about for the Leafs. And he's played 4 games so far and has 4 points, so not too shabby. Are any of these Leafs? Oh, I'm going to veer away from the sustainable or fleeting for a second. Just are any of these Leafs worth holding if you have that? Because you probably a lot of people grabbed Leafs for this week to get them Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. Are any of them worth holding all the way if you're going to have to wait till Friday, Sunday? But are they good enough to hold with how they're doing lately?
Yeah, absolutely. Tyler Bertuzzi is worth holding. We talked about him, what was it, a few weeks back when he was off to such a slow start, even with good deployment. And we're like, where is he? Like, this isn't working. But he's held in the top 6. He's held there for a reason. And I think we mentioned at the time, like, was seeing some bad luck and just needed to see that luck turn. And I think that's starting to happen for Bertuzzi, and not a moment too soon for anyone who's been patient. And like, go if he was dropped and he's been forgotten, you could go grab him, because I think he's going to be basically a season long hold, like Bunting was last year and Hyman the year before.
Trev, put me down for a respectful disagree there. We'll see. I don't want to like talk about like I just have a hunch
With
that he's not.
emphasis on respectful.
Yeah, very respectful, but I'm just curious to check back on that one in a month or so and see how this Bertuzzi prediction is going. Okay, let's go to the Bruins now. The next sustainable or fleeting, Brian, somehow James Van Riemsdyk is just having such a great season, and he's back on a big hot streak. It's taking too long to load. It's such a great season. Now, JVR has 6 points in his last 4 games, up to 11 points in 14 games overall on the season, a 64-point pace. What is this, the JVR of the Leafs? Sustainable or fleeting, Brian? He's getting great deployment with pasta, even strength power plays, getting it all, and he's producing.
Yeah, this might surprise you. I'm gonna go sustainable. Like, honestly, I'm as surprised as anyone. You know, Elon, I don't know whether to feel good about all these guys that we're talking about that, like, I have like I was with them past their best before date. Like I held faith in them longer than most and looked silly for it. And now they're suddenly they're back on track. And Van Riemsdyk is one of those. I mean, deployment helps, power play production helps, but I'm looking at like his 5-on-5 production is also up. So yeah, 64-point pace. James Van Riemsdyk actually looks like it could be for real.
So go get him. All right, there you heard it. So go get him if you still can. Brian, off the air, you said it was hard 9:30. Is that still the case? Like, do we need to wrap up now, or do you have another 10 minutes?
Gotta wrap up.
Okay.
Sorry.
How about let's like wrap up, and then I'm going to say that I'm going to stay on at the end to just say a few more things. Just like I'll just say the players on the list. And
why don't you say the players on the list now?
Well, you don't have time. We have to still do the outro and everything. It's gonna be 9:30 so soon.
Why don't you go through all?
No, because
I
want to like I'll talk about. I'll say their stats. You know, like I'll go for
you doing it alone.
I won't say any just people might be curious. I have some good hot streaks and cold streaks, but I haven't looked it up yet. I have to like. I was like, well, okay, if you want, okay, let's give me 5 minutes. We'll do 5 minutes.
Okay.
Okay. All right. All right, next up, Brian, over in Winnipeg. So the obvious guys, Scheifele and Connor, are incredible, but let's not waste time talking about how, I mean, obviously it's a little unsustainable, like 8 points in their last 3 games for each of them. But Cole Perfetti now has goals in 3 straight games. We're up to 7 points in his last 6 games. Perfetti really seems to be breaking out. I guess Velarde will be back at some point to maybe take that top power play. It's possible, who knows? But from how things are going now, forgetting about Velarde, just like say for the next month or so, is Perfetti sustainable or fleeting to you? Up to 11 points in 14 games overall. That is a 64-point pace.
Yeah, looks pretty good. And honestly, Elon, even if Velarde comes back and heads up to the top power play unit, maybe he bumps Iafallo and Perfetti stays because Iafallo's been there lately. Yeah, no, it's like 64-point pace for Perfetti. Of course, 3 goals on his last 8 shots is a little rich. but on the whole, his shooting percentage for the season seems reasonable. He's been in on every single goal scored while he's on the ice at 5-on-5. So that's one place for regression, and why I'm not going to say that Perfetti's going to sustain a full 64-point pace. But I don't think he's necessarily going to be too far off. Like, I think 55-60 would be a decent place for him to land, which, is a step up from last season for Perfetti, and the step up that I think the reasonable step up we'd be looking for this year.
Mm-hmm. Okay, over on Nashville, Tommy Novak, after the end of last season, he had 43 points in 51 games, was a 69-point pace. I think a lot of talk was like, yeah, he's clearly good. I don't think he's that good. Guess what? So far, he's at a 70-point pace. He's doing even better by a point, 12 points in 14 games. And just recently, Novak got a promotion to the top power play, bumping Tyson Barrie. So 70-point Tommy Novak, sustainable or fleeting if he's sticking on this top power play now?
Yeah, I think sustainable. I really do. Like, I think Novak is legit. I think I missed an opportunity when he was a free agent. Actually, I was beaten by a 3 a.m. ad to get him one week, and then he was dropped shortly after this latest run started. And the concern for me is that Novak is barely shooting, right? Like last year, we liked that he would have some big shot games. He has just 6 shots combined in his last 4 games. So I'd feel more comfortable if he was taking more shots. But I think Novak could be a legit like 60+ point producer. I know currently he's pacing for 70. He could get there. I think he's going to need to shoot a little more to do it, though.
Okay, in Vancouver, who's right now beating the Habs. Oh, the game's over now. 4-2 for the Canucks for the win. And we talked last week all about Pettersson and Quinn Hughes. One guy we didn't mention, Filip Hronek, had another assist today. He has 16 assists in 15 games this season. No goals, but he's like assisting every single game. You look through this game log, like a couple zeros, and that's it. And then a couple multi-point games to make up for it. So a point per game, Filip Hronek, all on assists, sustainable or fleeting.
Yeah, well, 5 of those assists have come on the power play, and he's on the second unit, and that's through 15 games. That's one place to say that he's not quite going to be able to keep this up. Also, Vancouver shooting very well, 15% with Hronek on the ice, which means even though he's participating at about the right rate, it probably isn't going to be having as many goals to assist on going forward. It's been an amazing start for him, but I could see him falling still like, oh, I'm not sure exactly how far down to regress him, because 87-point pace is like it's a high starting point. I don't see anything to tell me he's like so different than he was last year, though. Like, his minutes are actually like they're a little up from his time in Detroit. Well, maybe more than a little, 80 seconds per night at 5-on-5 versus last year in the 60 games he played in Detroit. So Hronek, Elon, I'll at least say like he's going to be a hold for I think he's going to be a hold for the season. How about that?
Yeah, okay. I definitely could have drafted him super late and, wishing I did.
I could have added him from free agency, but I was out of ads. And like someone added him like the last second late night on the Sunday.
Bummer. Okay, so we'll end with a few cold streaks now on the other side of this. LA Kings are scoring a lot of goals, but somehow Drew Doughty is not participating very much. Doughty is now pointless in his last 6 games, down to only 6 points in 14 games overall, a 35-point pace. Last year, he had 52. The year before, he paced for 65. So Doughty, is this cold streak going to break soon? And how soon? Because I have him, and I'd like it to.
I have him too. I think it should break. There's a lot of goals. He's not involved. He should be. I hope that's all there is to it. I really do. So I would expect Doughty to do better. There's at least no one pushing him for power play time, right? So he's got that going for him. But it is strange with all the goals being scored. He's not on them, and I assume it's just a matter of time before that corrects itself.
Okay. Another defenseman in New Jersey, Luke Hughes, holds the top power play, but is now pointless in his last 4 games. 7 points in 13 games overall. So it was looking really good before this stretch. I'm going to go ahead and say that it might be a rough stretch, and I'm waiting for his brother to come back. And then I think the points will start coming back as well.
Yeah, I can get behind that theory.
Okay, well, Brian, okay, one more. I just dropped him, so hopefully you won't say that this was a huge mistake. Shane Gostisbehere had a great start on Detroit this season, but he got healthy scratch recently, is now pointless in his last 7 games, leaving him with 9 points in 14. So it's crazy how well he started.
On a 53-point pace, even with all that.
Yeah. So where do you think things shake out for Gostisbehere moving forward?
Yeah, not as well. Obviously, is where they started. I think 45-50 is about where I'll put him. 6 power play points in 14 games early on was great. Or sorry, not before he had played 14 games was really good. Those 6 power play points came in his first like 7 games. So like there was a lot of unsustainable from what Gostisbehere was doing. It's just like he should get back on the score sheet before too long. It's just not going to be, or we shouldn't expect it to be as consistently great as it was for the first couple weeks of the season.
Yeah. Okay. I'll just mention also Billy Husso. I don't think we've talked about how bad he is yet. So I'll just mention he's having a really bad season. 885 save percentage. He still has 6 wins in 10 games. A lot of like Phoenix Copley vibes from last year. If you're a Husso manager, we had a question. I would say hold on because he is the starter, but he's scary. He's like an Edmonton goalie, I think, at this point.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've seen Husso do really well, right? And St. Louis, I guess, was right to remember he like outplayed Binnington. They're like, okay,
Mhm.
we'll hold on to Binnington. Husso, for what it's worth, has been outplaying his expected Fenwick save percentage at 5-on-5. Reimer has been outplaying his too, and by to a better extent. So Husso, but like this has been the story with Husso for a while. Like he looks good under the hood, but actually hasn't been in raw terms. But honestly, I think Detroit has to answer for some of what Husso's results have been.
Fair enough. But either way, this is a goalie who's led in 3+ goals in his last 6 games and like 4 and 5 goals in his last 3 games. So not great. Brian, this has been a blast. I could go sustainable or fleeting with you all night long, but I think we're a couple hours in. We've had a great part one, a great part two. So let's cut bait now while we're on a hot streak ourselves. And hopefully it is somewhat sustainable. Thanks so much, everyone, for listening. I hope that you've been enjoying all the content on the feed, including the matchup maximizer yesterday, 2 great short shifts earlier in the week, and we're coming back with the same slew coming at you again next week. So make sure you're subscribed to Keeping Karlsson. We've got a lot of fun perks if you want to support the podcast beyond just listening to the show. We have our Patreon. $5 a month gives you everything that we have. We give you the show notes. Today I shared the show notes even before the show. That'd be a fun thing for the patrons to get a sneak peek. Out just hang out in our Patreon itself is fun. We have our monthly patron cast, which I guess Brian we need to schedule soon. I guess that'll be probably next week. I think I'll look at the calendar. But yeah, so keepingkarlsson.com/patron to get more information there. But with that, Brian, let's cue the outro music. Why don't you go ahead and read us the credits?
All right. This episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast was presented by Dobber Hockey and powered by our patrons, including our super supporters who support us in one of their perks as they get named at the end of the show. So here it is. Patty, Ricard, David, Ryan, Tom, Zach, Andrea, Sammy, Ivan, Philip, Aaron, Patrick, Jordan, Michael, Don, and Roman. Thank you all so much for your super support. Thanks to all our patrons for supporting us. And I really do. I mean it. We mean it. And thank you too for listening. If you were just like, hey, this is the most I can do, thanks. We appreciate it. Thank you to Kevin Hebert and all the bots he's built. Elon, did you want me to? Oh, yes. You wanted me to mention his percent rostered, his couple percent rostered meta-based database. That is incredible. Elon, I don't know. Like you can basically, you know how Yahoo you can see percent rostered across Yahoo. Well, like forget that because like 40% of the leagues are dead. Like a couple percent rostered is where it's at, and it's available on our Discord server to our patrons and at getcouple.com under tools, kkupfl.com. I think it's at the bottom of the tools page. So check it out and you can get a look at what really smart and involved and active fantasy managers are actually doing with their players. Elon, Shams, keeping you posted with all the game day news, goalies, lines at gamedaytweets.com. Short Shifts Crew, listen to them midweek, follow them on Twitter, X, whatever, at Short Shifts KK. Logo art by BrandonWeeb.com. Outro music by Pat Roach. This episode was researched with help from Dobber Hockey, Frozen Tools, Dobber Prospects, Natural Stat Trick, Evolving Hockey, Cap Friendly, The Athletic, HockeyGoldies.org, Hockey Reference, Hockey Viz, Hockey Database, Elite Prospects, and Yahoo.
Yeah, I should mention Kevin's percent roster sheet helped me prep this show so much because, like, for hot and cold streaks, I could just be like, okay, tell me all the people who are rostered in every single couple division, and then I could look at their points, average points in their last 14 games. And I just browsed through and tried to see people that were like less than 2. And I was like, okay, that's someone on a cold streak that everyone is still rostering. Like, it's such a great tool if you ever make podcasts. So for any of you aspiring fantasy hockey podcasters, I'd recommend asking Kevin for access to this. But okay, Brian, great job as always. And looking forward to talking to you next week after listening to a couple short shifts.
Yeah. And while you're listening to those short shifts, I mean, they're pretty great at making sure you know it too. But just keep doing all you can to make sure that fantasy hockey is for everyone. Be nice
Boom.
to each other.
Yeah. By the way, I think that this was a solid 2-hour show, Brian. We started 10 minutes late, if you don't recall. So I'm proud of us. I think we did it.
I'm always proud of us.
I'm not proud of us when we go 2.5 hours like last week. I think this is better.
I'm sorry for that.
No, I'm sorry for that.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone, so much for joining. Hope you liked it. See you in the Discord. Bye.